missiles. It was equipped with AASM hammer bombs. Also, the deep strikes on terror camps were resulted because of that. It ensured minimum collateral damage while targeting the targets with precision. Loitering munitions and UAVs must also be spoken about. It is Israeli-made munitions and indigenous drones for surveillance and also targeted strikes. These managed to not just neutralize the enemy's air defense, but also gathered real-time intelligence for India. Next, we also have the Spider Air Defense System, which is also much talked about. It is another indigenous produced, Bengaluru based, by the way. It has been utilized and Python 5 and Darby missiles provided short to medium range air defense, and it managed to counter the low flying threats and enhance the multi-layer defense system and the entire defense architecture that India can speak about so importantly. Payal continues to be with us. Payal, I have just given a lowdown for our viewers on the indigenous defense capability that India boasts of. You were talking about the kind of procurements that we definitely have from countries like Russia, US and in France. But what we have produced here really speaks volumes.
Well, of course, the Prime Minister has always been very, very encouraging of the youth of the country, especially the youth power. Their, sort of entire bent of mind as far as technology, appreciation is really concerned. And therefore, the Prime Minister has always been of the opinion that, Make in India will be a brand which will stand out for a very, very long time as well. So, all the equipments that you spoke about produced indigenously by India is reaping its result in its first test itself as well. Remember, there are multiple contests that are held by the Union government to encourage people to, in fact, participate in drone technology, to participate in multiple technologies, whether it's science or space or, whatsoever as well. So, of course, a lot of credit must go to the government of the day for actually having, thought about this ahead of its times, given the fact that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi initially spoke about Make in India and spoke about these indigenous brands, people actually made it a laughing stock. But that's not true as well. Even during the COVID times, you've seen how India was able to produce its own indigenous vaccines way ahead of big countries across the globe. And India, in fact, in turn, landed up, transporting these vaccines to other countries as well. So it's a brand that we all need to take a lot of power. And we should draw a lot of power from. It's a brand that all of us should feel extremely proud of. And that's the reason the Prime Minister said in the present warfare, India is actually leading ahead in terms of technical warfare as well.
Right, Payal, thank you so much for that. With that, we are shifting our focus and talking about how the global approach to India's Operation Sindoor really has changed a lot, and there is a lot of hailing of the operation, many of them calling it a success for India, and the challenges that Pakistan's proxy warfare tactics have faced because of the operation also has been underlined, and also rejecting that nuclear blackmail that it's not just the Prime Minister but also the Raksha Mantri today spoke about, with India asserting that it will respond discriminately and proportionately without being intimidated by any amount of nuclear threats. Now, CNN News 18's Rahul Shivshankar spoke to defense expert John Spencer over all this and a lot more. Listen in.
Here in India, there are some who are saying that Modi's restraint is a sign of surrender, even weakness. How would you respond to these voices?
So we have a couple of famous quotes. So they're not the people in the arena. So I do analysis. So I take all the information we all have available and make a decision based on, even at this level, war is the pursuit of political goals. That's a leader in a wartime situation making a very risky decision to put people at greater risks. So this is where restraint is not weakness. The credible statements, those aren't weak statements to say that that's it. We will respond aggressively. And the military currently has the authority to respond immediately. All these things for me says that statements that what has happened in those 4 days is a sign of weakness is actually reckless. And I'm actually pretty hawkish on especially terrorism and the refreshing clarity of Prime Minister Modi in this case, in this statements and the investments in defense and the actions taken. I see great actually strength. And what we talk about a lot in the United States is, peace through strength. What was just done was an immense amount of strength shown, and the restraint to use force when necessary, not to be reckless with it.
The United States, and I think this was J.D. Vance who came out and said that there was a lot of alarming intelligence that made America sit up. What do you think was this alarming intelligence? If you were to analyze what you've seen, what would have triggered the Americans in that manner?
I think the instability, right? So we saw not just in the recklessness of the Pakistan military to attack India that would warrant any nation of the world to immediately respond. Nobody wants escalation into greater war. I'm sure some credible intelligence, even of what we saw with the Pakistan military leadership changes and within themselves, that level of instability, the sites that would be targeting, the voices within the intelligence community about possible reaction and counter reactions that are all part of that. I've heard other speculations about, nuclear sites being targeted, things like that. For me, my most likely assessment is just the instability and the risk of escalation within the Pakistan military and the government based on their interpretation of India's responses. And this is where you don't want, whether it's with our own history, like the Cuban Missile Crisis and things, you don't want really bad things happening because of instability and uncertainty. When India, and this I think was a big part of that responsible use of force, India was very responsive and clear what targets are being targeted and why, what type of munitions, how discriminate they were, proportionate, all these things, which is a big part of creating the stability on one end. But I feel there was some intelligence about instability on the other side.
Now, a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Adampur Air Base, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif dashed to the air bases in Sialkot and Pasrur in a copycat move. Both Pasrur and Sialkot air bases faced damages in the recent conflict between India and Pakistan after Pakistan intervened on behalf of terrorists during Operation Sindoor. Shehbaz Sharif was flanked by a delegation that included the Pak Army Chief General Syed Asim Munir, also the Deputy PM Ishaq Dar and the Defence Minister Khwaja Asif along with others. The Pakistan Prime Minister stood on war tanks which had no relevance in the recent conflict. Let me take this across to my colleague Siddhant Mishra. Siddhant, how does one see this? Shehbaz Sharif dashing to the airbase in Sialkot and Pasrur right after what he'd seen happen at Adampur. But we had a lot to show there. We had, the S-400 air defense system pretty intact, also the MiG-29. But on the other hand, nothing so far from Pakistan.
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, the optics have gone wrong, perhaps again in a tit-for-tat policy, copycat policy, which Pakistan always puts in place, perhaps right after Prime Minister Modi addressing Jawans at the front line at Adampur Air Base, perhaps which they claim that have been struck by Pakistani Air Force. And India has given proof that how the airstrip is intact, air defense systems are intact. In fact, in the backdrop, Prime Minister had S-400 systems. So perhaps, to counter that, they planned this PR visit to Sialkot, the same base which was struck by the Indian forces. And as you rightly said, there was not even a proper road to get into the base. They used the service road, which was not even properly made. At the same time, they didn't have anything to flex, so they had put the flexi behind
Yes.
and used as a backdrop from where Shehbaz Sharif addressed. So perhaps, this optics has gone wrong, and in fact there are a lot of, social media chatter also around that how they don't have anything to show, to establish. They all were standing on a regular tank of Pakistani army and perhaps addressing the crowd. So, they did try to copy India again, but they failed miserably and they stand exposed because, now people on social media platforms are asking Pakistanis that show us the airstrip, show us the air defense systems. And they have nothing to say on that. So, the entire PR exercise has gone wrong, and it has completely failed. And once again, it shows that how deep India has struck the Pakistani targets. And in fact, this is not just the Indian side is saying now. In fact, New York Times and Washington Post are also, filing
Absolutely.
stories, perhaps talking about that how India has struck.
Absolutely. So
Pakistan
let's talk more about that, Zidane, because India's precision airstrikes during the recent four-day conflict with Pakistan have left behind a trail of destruction, and the global media is now echoing what India has been claiming all along. Both the New York Times and the Washington Post, after reviewing high-resolution satellite imagery and the aftermath visuals, have confirmed extensive damage to Pakistan's military infrastructure. The New York Times says that India had a quote-unquote clear edge, with damage mostly inflicted by India on Pakistani airfields. It also reports that India hit high-value targets like the Noor Khan Air Base just miles from Pakistan's army headquarters. Meanwhile, the Washington Post calls it, quote-unquote, the most extensive Indian air attack since the 1971 war. Its analysis confirms that runways, hangars and Air Force buildings were hit across at least 6 Pakistani bases, some as deep as 100 miles inside the country.
I think the operation was long overdue. That's the first thing. It needed to happen is the second thing. And thirdly, I think the operation has been pretty successful from as best as I can understand it, which is not the impression that if you look at the more global media, it has been less than supportive of India, I think. I consider Pakistan to be a failed state, a terrorist incubator, and so it was good that India moved against it. The Western media's coverage has been absolutely atrocious. It's been biased in favour of Pakistan, and it's ignored the obvious success that India had. I was disappointed that President Trump intervened and tried to get a ceasefire. I didn't think there was any need for a ceasefire, but the Western media it's so unfair on so many things, not just this issue, many other issues as well. It cannot be trusted. The BBC should be banned in India. The BBC is so anti-India, it's incredible, and so pro-Pakistan.
Pakistan went running to try to achieve a ceasefire, like a scared dog with its tail between its legs. And the fact of the matter is, there is absolutely no spin that the Pakistani military can put on what occurred to shield themselves from the full reality of the fact that they not only lost, but they lost very, very badly. Clearly, there's a problem within the Pakistani military, both because it's a cancer on Pakistani society and because, as a military, it's incompetent. And so, is Asim Munir going to keep his job? Basically, Pakistan needs to clean house. But it's an open question whether they are too far gone to do that.
I think that what India did was necessary. Pakistan is breeding terrorism. They went into Kashmir and they killed innocent lives. You can't let that go. The attacks that India is doing is in a very responsible way. They're going after terrorism outposts, terrorist camps, places where the military is helping terrorists breed even more in Pakistan. So the propaganda that's being peddled by India is the same issues that they've been doing for the last 77 years. Even out of their own ISI, their leadership as well as their Minister of Foreign Affairs, they're peddling lies. They're deflecting, blaming the United States for supporting the terrorists and forcing them. They're blatantly threatening the world with nuclear annihilation. It's completely ridiculous, and I think the world is understanding very clearly who India is and how that's an economic power that's helping uplift the world, and who Pakistan is.
That's the importance of evidence-based journalism that is very, very important in this day and age of disinformation and a clear propaganda that was coming out of Pakistan. Many of the countries supportive of Pakistan, like China and Turkey, they were in fact peddling that same amount of fake news unchecked so far. And when India came up with not just one or two, but every other evidence that was possible after it launched Operation Sindoor, that also in fact included the kind of lowdown and brief that was given to defense attaches from 70 countries, remember, and that's why you see this kind of reportage that's coming in from the global media houses, reputed ones like the New York Times and the Washington Post now, that is hailing India's Operation Sindoor and talking about the kind of damage that we managed to inflict on the air bases in Pakistan. Now, Yalda Hakim, a journalist and TV presenter recently who drew attention for confronting Pakistani ministers with tough, uncomfortable questions, in fact is a Sky News presenter. She caught the eye of many across the world for challenging Pakistan's long-standing denial about promoting terrorism. Let's listen in to that exclusive conversation with CNN News 18's Saka Jacob.
What drew you to the India-Pakistan conflict situation, as it were? I know your family originally is from Afghanistan, so you're from this part of the world, if I can use that phrase. But really, in terms of a news story, what drew you to it? What was so fascinating about it for you to cover as a journalist?
Zakir, thank you so much for having me on your program. As you say, I mean, the region has often interested me. I've covered stories from India, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan for many years, from the very beginning of my journey as a journalist. But I think beyond that, this was and remains an incredibly important story that I feel that frankly Western media continues to miss and doesn't quite understand. They don't understand why Kashmir is such a flashpoint. They don't understand why it is such a hot topic for both India and Pakistan. And beyond that, the fact that you've got two nuclear armed rivals that could be at the brink of war. I think even in this instance, what is now alarming, which is being again missed by Western capitals and their leaders, is the fact that certain red lines have now been crossed and that baseline has now moved, which means the next time there is a flashpoint, we are going to have those lines across yet again, and it could become even more dangerous than, frankly, this time round from 2019 and the various other moments where there has been conflict. But my main frustration in my newsroom, whether it was at the BBC or at Sky News, frankly, is a real lack of fully grasping the importance of this this conflict, not just for the region, but the entire international community.
You know, it's interesting you said that every time there was a terror attack and there was subsequent military retaliation by India, the envelope was pushed a bit more. The chain of escalation went up a bit more. And so was the case now as well. Traditionally, it was always thought that two countries that have nuclear weapons, will not attack each other because that's the ultimate form of deterrence, if you will. But over the last 3 or 4 instances, has India sort of changed the game or moved the envelope in a way that Pakistan cannot use these terror proxies and hope or imagine that there will not be a retaliation or there won't be a consequence, or take refuge behind the nuclear weapons and say, India can't hit us because we have the nuclear weapon?
I think it's a little bit of both. I interviewed Ambassador Amar Sinha very early on after the Pahalgam terrorist attack. And at the time, he said that, we can't continue to be told that there will be this nuclear threat and therefore we can't take action, and that we have to tolerate a terrorist attack on Indian soil time and time again. And I think that it's one of those things where what is most concerning is that not only is Pakistan a nuclear armed state, which of course India is too, but it also does have this policy, for those who know Pakistan's history and its relationship with terror organizations, backing them, funding them, supporting them, giving sanctuary to terrorist organizations, whether it was in Bahawalpur or other parts of the country in the tribal belts. They have done that for decades. And I think what's often missed is, because Pakistan comes out and denies these, it is often bought by journalists and, frankly, diplomats around the world. The United States spent decades giving billions of dollars to Pakistan in the war against terror, knowing that they were providing sanctuary for these terrorist organizations. And so the finger of blame is often pointed at India for taking action off the back of one of these attacks. And I think that, there is huge difference between India and Pakistan. India is now a great power, and Pakistan is a weaker power, and it is still finding itself not cracking down on these terrorist groups. And fundamentally, that is the issue. But these are questions that aren't necessarily asked of Pakistani authorities.
We're getting some more breaking news now. As per top government sources, the government is very confident that India has come out of all the disinformation very, very strongly. In the last few days, India has seen how the Western media has lauded India's supremacy in military strength, and there is no comparison to what India was during Kargil, and how India has now increased not just the capabilities, indigenous capabilities, by leaps and bounds. And all of that was also, remember, showcased by the Director Generals of Military Operations briefing in two successive press conferences. Remember, it was not just one briefing, there were two in a row that were done by the DGMOs. My colleague Payal Mehta has all the details. Payal, the Western media is lauding Operation Sindoor. The Defence Minister, the Prime Minister is talking about India's military might through indigenous infra that India has constantly been developing. Things are no longer what it was when Kargil really happened, and that has been evidently pointed out, and that's something that even the West is standing up and taking notice.
Well, the number of articles that you now see written by the Western media essentially talking about India's military strength, its might. We were just speaking about this just a little while earlier, Griha, that India has come on its own. India has come out as a brand which is to be reckoned with as well. And all those people who are reading too much into what Donald Trump really said, and then he changed his statement again as well. India is very, very confident that they know how to handle each country in their respective manner. India is very, very confident, and it was said in no uncertain terms by the Prime Minister himself, Griha, that anything to do with Pakistan, India will set the agenda. If they ever have to speak to Pakistan, it will be on their terms and condition and not by anybody else. And India's stated position all along has been that we will only, we will handle the issue of Kashmir ourselves. It is of course integral to us, and there's no need for any intervention or any sort of interference coming in from anywhere as well. So obviously a lot has changed over the last few days as well. First, you saw that the Pakistani establishment was trying to plague India by desperately trying to, meddle in and pile in Indians with fake content, which is being dispelled regularly by the Indian establishment. And of course, every fake news has had Pakistan give egg on its face, given the fact it was immediately countered by India. And of course, so much so that Pakistan used fake news, not just news. They used fake videos and fake pictures as well. But everywhere, India has been able to successfully counter the narrative. So anybody who has doubts on India's countering the narrative is concerned, India putting out the facts plain will actually have egg on its face, and it's very, very evident from the way you've seen the Western media really look at India's perspective from the last few days.
Okay, so as far as the Trump intervention is concerned, Payal, is India going to take this up on a separate date and time with President Trump, considering the kind of equation that India and US shares?
You are living in a multilateral world, which clearly means that you can't put a full stop on any country unless you just draw a line. And like the Prime Minister said, we've drawn a line. We've drawn a Lakshman Rekha with Pakistan. As far as the US is concerned, US and India are important trade partners with each other. But time and again, the Indian government has told everybody very clearly, including the US, they do not need anybody to meddle with their affairs as far as Kashmir is concerned. The whole argument between Pakistan and India has always been the Kashmir issue. And Pakistan has tried to make this a global matter, but India has always said that anything to do with Kashmir, India will handle it on its own. They do not need anybody's interference. Hopefully, multiple countries would have learned the lesson because, first when Donald Trump said that he mediated between two countries, then he saw his change of stand and he saw that he said he was helping the two countries out as well. So, obviously, Donald Trump also, I'm sure, as any other world leader, values his trade relations with India as much as anybody else.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Payal. In fact, let's now get you another special interview. CNN News 18's Rahul Shivshankar has spoken to Dr. Prahlad Ramarao, who's a former DRDO scientist and the man behind the Akash defense missile system. Listen in to that conversation.
So, Mr. Ramarao, I have to begin by asking you, you have said in the past that your eyes welled up with tears when you saw your baby working so well. You said that. You said that when you saw your baby working so well, you almost cried. Can you elaborate on the feeling of the pride that you felt when you saw Akash protect India?
See, those who have done real science and technology work for more than 20 years have done. And for Akash, it took more than 15 years for it to come to a conclusion, hand over to the Army, Air Force. Then we were not at that time when we handed over to Army, Air Force, we never thought it will be used in the real field, in the real battlefield by real soldiers, and how it performs. It's a big tension, and we were all waiting. But it so happened that first of all, it gave a good performance.
Right.
Second, it was in a real battlefield.
Yes.
Performed well. So it is you can't explain how your heart swells and your mind works.
Oh.
And you cannot talk. I could not even talk for some time. When I heard the news, then my wife was there. She said, take it correctly.
Well,
it has worked well. So then only I could recollect.
No,
Then the first person I remembered was Dr. Kalam.
Oh, Dr. Kalam. Well, Mr. Ramarao, I have to say, you're making me emotional. I think you're making perhaps many, many Indians very emotional tonight. But wow, that was such a magical technology. It is still, of course. And how complex was the science behind designing it, sir? I mean, I know it took you a long time. So how complex was it to get it perfect? So perfect.
See, what happened? Normally, people develop technology and product. Any missile system, normally in the world, it is a technology. We have to make a product, design, development, assembly, testing, improvement, material choice, and that is normally what happens. But in case of Akash, there was science involved. One science is how to make a phased array radar work. That is a electronically scanning phased array radar. In India, there was no phased array radar before this. When the LRD was doing, then it was called as a Rajendra, respecting the name of the director of LRD. And there's a lot of science in it, microwave engineering, RF engineering, and then digital electronics, microelectronics, everything was involved. So there is a big science there, how to make the radar work for such a missile system. This is one big science question. Second, another science is the propulsion of this missile system is called ramjet propulsion. And there is hardly only maybe one more ramjet propulsion available in the entire world. And we had to develop a ramjet propulsion for the missile, because the Army and Air Force said, I don't want the missile to lose the speed. Whatever speed you generate Mach 2 plus should remain till the missile will go near the target and explode. So it is a big challenge, because normally the speed will keep coasting down, reducing as you fly away and away. So then we evolved what is known as ramjet propulsion, where a lot of science was involved. Chemistry, propellant chemistry was involved.
Wow. Wow. Look, Indian brain, viewers, Indian brain, you can't credit it enough. So, Prahlad Saab, now tell me, you said at first the military was hesitant to take on board the Akash, even though only one other country has this ramjet technology. So, why? Why was the military hesitant? Could you explain this? Must have been odd for you.
No. The word is apprehensive. Army and Air Force are apprehensive. Whether they will get two questions they had. One is, can you have handling capability using a phaser? The second apprehension is, can you get the accuracy of hitting target? Typically shot kill probability of very high 99%. This missile at the range of 25 kilometers. These are the two apprehensions they had, because we did not use certain technology what they thought will be required. But when we demonstrated to Army and Air Force, I'm happy that both requirements will be met.
Now let's get you an update from Pulwama in Tral. We are learning that 3 terrorists have been killed in an encounter with security forces that broke out in that Tral area of Pulwama, and this happened this morning. Remember, the encounter was raging on since the morning, and we have now finally got confirmation that the 3 terrorists who belong to Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group have been neutralized. The security forces has launched a cordon and search operation in Avantapura in South Kashmir following specific intel inputs about the presence of terrorists in the area. The search operation turned into an encounter after the terrorists fired upon the forces, who later retaliated.
Security forces got specific information regarding the movement of terrorists in that area. Accordingly, cordon was laid off, and it led to the ensuing of encounter between security forces and hold-up terrorists. So far, we have observed few bodies of terrorists. 3 bodies are observed, but operation is still going on at this moment. It will take some time to sanitize and conclude. So identities and affiliation could only be divulged only after that.
We're in Tral right now, where an exchange of gunfire is still going on between militants and security forces. You'll still hear gunfire going on in the background. This is basically security forces trying to corner those militants who are trapped here. And what we've been given to understand is that there's a possibility of 3+ militants or locals possibly being trapped in this particular vicinity. And that's why a massive search operation is still going on in the area, and security forces are trying to corner those militants who could be possibly trapped in this particular location. And, the operation is in its final stages. What we have been given to understand in the morning, 1 was killed, and now the exchange of gunfire is still going on, and they are trying to corner that militants who could be possibly trapped in the vicinity. But a big operation that in 3 days that they are able to neutralize at least 4 militants, and this is a success for the security forces, who are right now in the process of carrying out this massive operation in Tral as we speak. But yes, it's an operation which is still ongoing, and as you heard, the blast behind me, and we're not giving out any operational details, but the blasts are going on in the location, and the security forces are trying to kill as many militants as possible who are hiding inside this house.
Right, this was an earlier report that my colleague Ishan Vani had filed for all of you from Tral in Pulwama when that encounter was still going on, and he was also talking about the earlier Shopia encounter that had managed to neutralize 3 other terrorists, and there are 3 more who have been killed in Tral. We leave it at that. We are going into a very short break.
They have code-named this operation Operation Sindoor. The Indian Army, through Operation Sindoor, has hit 9 targets.
You try to target our bases, you try to target our capital, or you try to target our cities, we will hit you so hard that you will not be able to fly your machine.
News coming out that nervous Pakistan is seeming to wave the white flag.
This is what Manoj Gupta is bringing for us, this piece of information that Pakistan wants to de-escalate.
As we slip into evening on May 10, Donald Trump, US President, has now announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire.
Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that both India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which remember houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha. It looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills, and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area, and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international watchdog, nuclear watchdog, is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that, this means that the matter has now been globally put to rest. Glad, Siddhant, that you mentioned what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti had to say, because let's play out his reaction when he was the first one to dismiss all of those rumors. Let's listen in to what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti said.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
All right. I go back to Siddhant on that note. Siddhant, of course, it was peppered with a bit of sarcasm when he had responded to that query. But I think what's most important right now is to indicate that the IAEA, which is the global nuclear watchdog, when it steps in and declares that there has been no radioactive leak so far, that also lays to rest all of those reports that were doing the rounds, that perhaps there was a US intervention which was being sought, perhaps there was a Chinese intervention that was being sought, as you rightly highlighted, that there's been a lot of chatter ever since and panic on both sides of the border.
That's right, Akanksha. And in fact, there was also an attempt to project India in a bad light, that India is not a responsible country. India has hit a very sensitive site in Pakistan, and there was an attempt on social media perhaps to frame India. When Air Marshal Bharti made it very clear on the first day that India has not hit Kirana Hills, and in fact he said that we also don't know what is there. So there where Indian Armed Forces made their position clear that they have not hit Kirana Hills, and they also don't know what is present there. But despite that, there was a lot of chatter. In fact, there was this Egyptian plane which landed near Kirana Hills, perhaps.
Good evening and a warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18 with me, Griha. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, has confirmed that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan following the recent military escalation with India. The clarification comes in as the Indian Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, raised serious concerns about the safety of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. Rajnath Singh said Pakistan is a quote-unquote irresponsible and rogue nation and urged the IAEA to take control of Pakistan's nuclear capabilities under international supervision. Speculation, remember, had intensified after reports suggested India may have struck Kirana Hills, which is believed to be a sensitive nuclear site in Pakistan. But India has consistently denied targeting any such facility. In fact, Air Marshal A.K. Bharti of the Indian Air Force reiterated that Kirana Hills was not on India's radar. The IAEA statement now backs that very assertion, confirming that no nuclear incident has been reported to its emergency center.
हमने उनके न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की भी परवाह नहीं की है। पूरी दुनिया ने देखा है कि कैसे गैर जिम्मेदाराना तरीके से पाकिस्तान द्वारा भारत को अनेक बार एटमी धमकियां दी गई हैं। आज श्रीनगर की धरती से मैं पूरी दुनिया के सामने यह सवाल उठाना चाहता हूं कि क्या ऐसे गैर जिम्मेदार और रोग नेशन के हाथों में परमाणु हथियार सुरक्षित हैं? मैं दुनिया के सामने यह सवाल खड़ा करना चाहता हूं। मैं मानता हूं कि पाकिस्तान के एटमी हथियारों को IAEA इंटरनेशनल एटॉमिक एनर्जी एजेंसी की निगरानी में लिया जाना चाहिए।
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
And my defence correspondent Akash Sharma is now with us on the broadcast. An important statement by the Raksha Mantri, Akash, where he said that Pakistan is an irresponsible and a rogue nation, and hence it must not even be having these nuclear installations.
Right, Griha. In fact, the pertinent question that Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh is asking to the entire world, where in fact the international community is watching the developments that are happening, and in fact the conflict where a number of things have happened between India and Pakistan. Rajnath Singh was asking if at all it is safe to have, a country like Pakistan that has got nuclear weapons. And as per him, Pakistan's nuclear weapons should be placed under surveillance of IAEA, that is the watchdog. In fact, we have seen that how there were claims and counter-claims, from both the countries in the recent days, when Pakistan claimed, and in fact the narrative was going on social media that how India has tried on Kirana Hills, which is believed to be the facility where they are carrying their nuclear reactors. However, at this point in time, while it was categorically denied by the Indian Air Force, once again it has been clarified by IAEA as well that there is no radiation. However, at this point in time, Rajnath Singh has somewhere raised an important question to the entire world, and in fact has demanded something that is much needed this time around, because we have seen time and again that how Pakistan threatens countries like India with the sort of the capabilities that it has got, while on one hand it has in fact suffered destruction in the conventional warfare. On the other hand, it has threatened India to use nuclear weapons, and Raksha Mantri was somewhere mentioning about that blackmail that Pakistan has been involved in.
Yes, absolutely. And let's not forget, Akash, in all of this, that India at every step of the way is also attempted to rebut the claims which were being made by Pakistan, which were also being used to seek greater international sympathy and intervention, while once again going ahead with the nuclear blackmail.
Right, and you see, Christine, as far as Pakistan is concerned, so this is not the first time when, they have been, threatening India, after the sort of developments that have happened. But time and again, it has happened. We have seen in the past too that how, their officials, their army generals, and
dealings with Pakistan will be bilateral. Talks with Pakistan. I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that the only talks with Pakistan will be on terror. That Pakistan has a list of terrorists who need to be handed over. They have to shut down the terrorist infrastructure. They know what to do. We are prepared to discuss with them what is to be done on terrorism. Those are the talks which are feasible. Water issues have been raised. Again, you all know, and I re-emphasize, the Cabinet Committee on Security and the government, obviously, was very clear that the Indus Waters Treaty is held in abeyance and will be continued to be held in abeyance until cross-border terrorism by Pakistan is credibly and irrevocably stopped. So, sometimes the Kashmir issue has been brought up. Again, the only thing which remains to be discussed on Kashmir is the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. We are open to discussing that with Pakistan. So I want, to spell out our positions very clearly so that, what is in your minds and what many of you have raised with me on various occasions. The government's position is very, very clear. Thank you very much.
All right, big word coming in from External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. While he was speaking on the sidelines of the Honduras embassy inauguration, he did lay emphasis to pointed questions raised by the media there, once again making it amply clear that even during the CCS meeting, the government has made it clear that the Indus Water Treaty in its abeyance will continue until cross-border terrorism comes to a halt. As Jaishankar also says, many issues have been raised. Our relations will be strictly bilateral. He is of course referring to the relationship India shares with Pakistan, and that India will not back or step back on the decisions it's taken against Pakistan. And raising the one word we heard from the Prime Minister as well, that talks with Pakistan will only be around terrorism and POK. That's the big reiteration we just heard from the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Going across to Siddhant Mishra, who joins us with a little bit of a context to this reaction that's just come in. Siddhant, we see him outlining Naya India's vision in dealing with Pakistan once again.
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, he was speaking at Honduras embassy in the national capital. In fact, the embassy has just got inaugurated today by Mr. Shankar. In fact, speaking there, he reiterated India's position on Indus Waters Treaty, cross-border terrorism from Pakistan, and also on the talks with Pakistan. Perhaps made it very clear that if there will be talk with Pakistan, then that will only be on the illegal occupation of Kashmir, and it again clear. As far as IWT is concerned, perhaps he again reiterated the government's position, which is that that treaty will be in abeyance till the time Pakistan will stop cross-border terrorism. Perhaps a big statement coming from Minister Jaishankar. In fact, he also said that once they got hit badly on morning of May 10th, all you have seen the Saturday pictures of the damage. They will tell what hit they took. Perhaps he again reminds everyone about how India had deeply damaged the air bases and military bases in Pakistan, and perhaps that's a turning point in Operation Sindoor, and after which only the CMO level talks were initiated. In fact, Pakistan, reached out to Pakistan High Commission here in New Delhi, and High Commission, reached out to Minister of External Affairs, and that is how DGMO talks were set up. So, he perhaps again want to remind the world that there is no mediation which actually happened. Perhaps some are claiming that they got it mediated. They brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He has again put records straight. Perhaps three major takeaways. One, that if there is talk with Pakistan, that will only on the illegal occupation of Kashmir. Second, he said that that as far as Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance is concerned, that will be in abeyance unless Pakistan stops cross-border terrorism. Third, he again reminds the world that there is no mediation that took place. Perhaps it is because of the Indian armed forces, their might, with which they had hit Pakistan, and eight of their bases were destroyed by the Indian armed forces. Perhaps that made Pakistan to go down on the knees and requested India for a DGMO level talk. So perhaps Minister Jaishankar again keeping the record straight, and perhaps this is a soundbite which he inauguration of an embassy here in the United States.
Siddhant, do you sense that India officially is wanting to reiterate the line it has drawn with Pakistan in a messaging to the world, to the West, given we're already seeing a shift in how the West is opening up to the official narrative that's been shown with proof by India?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, there is a lot of misunderstanding, Greha, created by Pakistan, United States. In fact, Indians are convinced, but it is also important for the world to be equally convinced as far as India's position on mediation is concerned, cross-border terrorism is concerned, IWT is concerned. In fact, Mr. Jaishankar also gave emphasis to that how the 25th April UNSC statement was perhaps the context for launch Operation Sindoor. In fact, that statement itself says, that resolution says that the perpetrators must be held accountable. So on May 7th, they were held accountable by India. So, India has done nothing illegal. India has not violated any, norms, international norms. India has only acted in context with the UNSC resolution, which says that perpetrator needs to be brought to justice. And that is exactly what India did on May 7th. So a very, very comprehensive, precise remarks coming from Mr. Jaishankar. And in fact, this is especially coming at a time when, as we were discussing before, there is a lot of misunderstanding, and foreign powers are deliberately trying to create misunderstanding and taking credit for the understanding reached between India and Pakistan. It is very important that this credit needs to be given to Indian armed forces. It is very important that this credit should go to our braves who perhaps made Pakistanis go down on their knees and initiate DGMO level talks. No other world leaders or a country should be taking credit for it. So that's the message which India is sending out at this point in time.
Oh yes, Mr. S. Jaishankar briefly also commented on the trade talks that are underway with the United States. Do you see that being hit in any manner or seeing an impact in the short term, Siddhant, given the reactions that have come in from the United States? We've seen the US walk back a little as far as its mediation attempt is concerned, but overall, what do you think its impact is going to be on Indo-US relations?
Well, as far as trade talks are concerned, I doubt that the talks will be impacted. In fact, we have been told that this is what reports are telling us, that Minister Goyal is going to be in United States day after tomorrow, perhaps to hold talks with his counterpart. So I doubt that there's going to be any impact of the comments which President Trump made on the ongoing trade negotiations between the two sides. Having said that, India is indeed looking at diversifying its market. India is still indeed looking at doing trade agreements with more and more countries, perhaps not to rely on one or one or two countries purely as far as trade is concerned. So India has just finalized FTA with the United Kingdom. In fact, that happened on 6th of May. India is in talks for FTA with European Union. In fact, that negotiation is also going on. In fact, there are other countries also with which India would be looking forward to have trade talks. So India has understood one thing, that it is not a time for to be dependent on one country completely as far as trade is concerned. So yes, a trade with United States, trade talks in United States will not be impacted, because that is in the larger interest of the people of both the countries. But having said that, India is definitely looking at diversifying markets.
Oh yes, absolutely. So this is a strong worded comment that's come in from External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, who's given this brief reaction to the media, but two important takeaways. One is, of course, on the Indus Water Treaty. In abeyance, the External Affairs Minister says that very much continues still. That is going to be India's attempt to ensure that Pakistan walks the talk when it comes to terrorism, especially the one that is operating on its soil. And the other, of course, the External Affairs Minister once again reiterating to the world that the only talks that will take place with Pakistan will be on terrorism. Listen in.
Consensus that dealings with Pakistan will be bilateral. Talks with Pakistan. I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that the only talks with Pakistan will be on terror. That Pakistan has a list of terrorists who need to be handed over. They have to shut down the terrorist infrastructure. They know what to do. We are prepared to discuss with them what is to be done on terrorism. Those are the talks which are feasible. Water issues have been raised. Again, you all know, and I re-emphasize, the Cabinet Committee on Security and the government, obviously, was very clear that the Indus Waters Treaty is held in abeyance and will be continued to be held in abeyance until cross-border terrorism by Pakistan is credibly and irrevocably stopped. So, sometimes the Kashmir issue has been brought up. Again, the only thing which remains to be discussed on Kashmir is the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. We are open to discussing that with Pakistan. So I want, to spell out our positions very clearly so that, what is in your minds and what many of you have raised with me on various occasions. The government's position is very, very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been on the ceasefire as well, because many people are talking about the ceasefire aspect as well. If you want to...
No, look, ceasefire, I think one of you asked me inside about trade as well. On the ceasefire, what you call ceasefire, we call cessation of firing and military action. We achieved, the goals which we set out to do by destroying the terrorist infrastructure in Bahawalpur, Muridke, Muzaffarabad and other places. So after that, I think since the key goals were achieved, I think we reasonably took the position because even at that start, at the start of the operation, we had sent a message to Pakistan saying we are striking at terrorist infrastructure. We are not striking at the military. So the military has an option of standing out and not interfering in this process. They chose not to take that good advice. Now, once they got hit as badly as they did on the morning of May 10th, and all of you have seen the, today the satellite pictures which actually bring out very graphically how much damage we did. By the way, the satellite pictures also bring out how little damage they did. So these pictures, I think, will tell you what a hit they took. And the same people who are not willing to stand down on 7th May were willing to talk and stand down on the 10th of May. It is very clear who wanted the cessation of firing. On the trade remarks, let me say this, that look, between India and US, trade talks have been going on, negotiations have been going on. In fact, we have, I think a team is just going at this point. These are very complicated negotiations. They are very intricate. Nothing is decided till everything is. But any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. Any trade deal has to work for both the countries. And I think that would be our expectation from the trade deal. And until that is done, I think any judgment on it would be premature. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, very important points there made by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. A brief reaction, but a detailed one indeed, because he's spoken on a host of issues important in the perspective of India's interest, especially in the wake of tensions with Pakistan, which currently are seeing a military pause. But I do want to take in a word from our expert joining us on the broadcast, Mr. J.J. Tripathi, former diplomat. Ambassador Tripathi, a very good evening to you. Your first thoughts. This is a very accurate picture being given, or should I say reiterated, by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, who says that there should be no doubt to the fact that the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance will continue till Pakistan puts a full stop to terrorism. And he's made it very clear. He says what the world is calling a ceasefire, Mr. Tripathi, is cessation of military action for India.
Yes, exactly. In fact, we have never said that we have ceased the fire. We have just said, as Minister has said, that the military action has been stopped. The firing has been stopped. That's all. Tension still remains. And coming to his clarification that that there will be no talk with Pakistan. Yes, Prime Minister has also earlier told that declared that there will be no talk with Pakistan. If at all there is any possibility of any type of talk, there will be two topics: one POK and the other terrorism. Otherwise, there will not be any talk. And this stance, this very clear and very robust stance by India, as projected by the minister, shows what India's resolve is in this regard. India wants to settle this issue once for all with Pakistan.
And of your understanding, Ambassador Tripathi, do you think that this is going to push Pakistan to a point where Pakistan is willing to act on terror, at least the one that is operating on its soil? Because in the past, Pakistan has failed to act in that direction. Even now, there was zero recognition of the fact that the terror strikes were carried out in a precise manner on terror infrastructure on its soil.
Well, given its role or its history, I am sure that Pakistan is just not going to give up on terror, just not going to surrender the terrorists involved in various attacks. But because history shows us that Pakistan has never done that. Pakistan has always been in denial mode. What Pakistan might do, what this might bring in, what result this might bring, this discussion, is that Pakistan is being gradually isolated in the world on the issue of terrorism, and there one day it might have to ensure that the military supremacy is done away with in Pakistan, because as you know, our Pakistani army is the main culprit. They are the ones who sponsor, prepare and sponsor terrorism. So as long as supremacy of our army is there in Pakistan, Pakistan is not going to relent.
Yes, and that's what India's attempting to convey, Ambassador Tripathi, that
exactly.
we're not going to walk back on the action we've decided to take against you until you put a full stop to the terror nonsense that has been ongoing on Pakistani soil for decades at length. Ambassador Tripathi, many thanks. Appreciate you sharing all those important points with us. I do want to go across to my colleague Siddharth Mishra on that note once again. Siddharth, a very important point made on Indo-US trade. Now, we've seen the kind of the discussions that have been ongoing between India and the United States over trade in a phased manner, but for the first time we see the External Affairs Minister say in a very pointed way that any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. Siddharth, what do you make of that?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, this should also be seen in the context of the commentary coming from President Trump. In fact, in fact, he said that in Doha, if I'm not mistaken, that India has agreed to lower the tariff. Then this another statement which came from President Trump, where he said that I have asked Tim Cook not to set up a plant in India, and perhaps they are the tariff kings and do it here in the United States. And now in fact he was not directly answering to the question regarding what President Trump has said. He was in general talking about India-US trade talks as we were discussing before, Beha, that how day after tomorrow Minister Goel is going to be in the United States to hold talks with the Americans. Now, ahead of that, there's a statement coming from EM.S. Jaishankar is very, very significant. In fact, he again stated India's position that between India and US, trade talks have been going on. These are complicated negotiations. Nothing is decided till everything is. Any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. It has to work for both countries. That would be our expectation from the trade deal. Until that is done, any judgment on it would be premature. So, there's a lot of commentary, as I said, that India has lowered the rates. India has agreed to lower the rates, etc., have been made. And this commentary is only coming from United States. India is completely silent as far as trade talks with US is concerned. Perhaps the last official words which we heard from the Indian government was when the terms of reference was decided between the two sides. This was at the time of J.D. Vance's visit, this announcement came. So since then, we have not heard anything from the Indian side. All we get to hear is from President Trump or
But do we sense through the tone and tenor of the External Affairs Minister, Siddhant, that there is a sense in at least in the Indian corridors, official political corridors, that United States indirectly may be wanting to exercise the trade leverage it enjoys with India, and that India doesn't want to seemingly give to the US at the moment. And India, through MEA, has in the past also maintained very clearly that this is a bilateral issue with Pakistan, is going to be limited to that in days to come too.
Well, absolutely. In fact, Indian side also did not like the way President Trump said right after the understanding between India and Pakistan that I used trade as a tool to bring both the countries to an understanding. In fact, there was no discussion related to trade ever happened with the United States from 7th of May to 10th of May till the time understanding was reached between India and Pakistan. Having said that, Indian side also did not like that how US is so perhaps desperately taking credit for the understanding reached between the two countries. In fact, a short while back, President Trump's press secretary has come up with a social media post, perhaps referring to how she met a Kashmiri in Doha, and that Kashmiri thanked her for getting a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. So there have been a lot of commentary from the US side, US government, that how President Trump used trade to get the agreement, understanding done, etc., etc. This is for the first time that EM.S. Jaishankar has spoken on India-US trade talks. Perhaps, as you rightly said, the tone is something which one needs to note it down. At the same time, the question which was asked to him was not directly about what President Trump has said. It was asked to him, in the general context ahead of Minister Goel's visit, to which he said that any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. There should not be any judgment on it. Any judgment on it would be premature. So, even if somebody says that, India has agreed to lower the tariffs, or India has agreed to, what US was looking for, perhaps, he perhaps cleared the air that nothing needs to be trusted till the time it is finally done, till the time it is finally decided. So, and it has to be mutually beneficial. He again, reiterated.
So, what we just saw was External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar almost repeat what was opined by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh earlier today in Srinagar, that the Prime Minister has defined or redefined India's policy against terrorism. Siddhant, many thanks for joining us with all those details. Heading into a very quick break with that, viewers. We'll be right back with lots more. Keep watching.
They have code-named this operation Operation Sindoor. The Indian Army, through Operation Sindoor, has hit 9 targets.
You try to target our bases, you try to target our capital, or you try to target our cities, we will hit you so hard that you will not be able to fly your machine.
News coming out that nervous Pakistan is seeming to wave the white flag.
This is what Manoj Gupta is bringing for us, this piece of information that Pakistan wants to de-escalate.
As we slip into evening on May 10, Donald Trump, US President, has now announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire.
Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that both India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which, remember, houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha. It looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international watchdog, nuclear watchdog, is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that, this means that the matter has now been globally put to rest. Glad, Siddhant, that you mentioned what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti had to say, because let's play out his reaction when he was the first one to dismiss all of those rumors. Let's listen in to what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti said.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
All right. I go back to Siddhant on that note. Siddhant, of course, it was peppered with a bit of sarcasm when he had responded to that.
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. We return with a breaking news response that's just come in from SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav. He's taken a jibe at Prime Minister Modi and has called him Chitra Jeevi. He's mocked the Bharatiya Janata Party's Tiranga Yatra. Tiranga Yatra, remember viewers, is a yatra that's being undertaken by the BJP across the nation to talk about the success of Operation Sindoor. But Akhilesh Yadav says celebrations should be for victories, not for ceasefire. He's also questioned the government and has asked, why don't we deploy more army at our borders? Why are our borders not safe? So that's the big comment coming in from Samajwadi Party's Akhilesh Yadav. I do want to go across to Manmohan, my colleague, who's getting us more details on this reaction that's come in. Manmohan, first up, tell us, when was this spoken of by the SP chief and in what context? Because there are many in the opposition, while some have come out to question the government's intent behind halting military operations with Pakistan. There are some who also come out to openly back it. What is Akhilesh Yadav trying to say?
See, what Akhilesh Yadav really said, he spoke about an hour back in Amethi. He said that he first criticized the Tiranga Yatra which was carried out yesterday by the BJP. Several senior ministers, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath participated in it. This was carried out across India in several states, many cities. He criticized the Tiranga Yatra, saying that, top leaders and top ministers did not really walk the Yatra. They just flagged it off and they just walked a few steps and did not participate fully in it. He said, what kind of a Tiranga Yatra is this which is celebrating a ceasefire? He essentially wanted to say is that a victory march is taken out only when a country wins, not when a ceasefire is arranged or a ceasefire is announced. So he said that such victory marches are only carried out when a country wins or when there is a clear victory. And a ceasefire does not amount to taking out a victory march. Then he went on to say that the Prime Minister has become he is fond of getting his pictures clicked and he is a Chitrajeevi. And he said that the Prime Minister is visiting various army bases, meeting army personnel. And in the backdrop, there is a display of missiles, tanks, and anti-tank, anti-drone missiles, which are being displayed wherever he is going. And he is taking pictures with them. So what he wanted to say is that this is not really done, and this shows that the Prime Minister is using these missiles as a backdrop for his self-promotion, and these should not be used for selfies and self-promotion. That is what he wanted to say.
So basically he's attempting to call the entire exercise that was undertaken by the Prime Minister to go to Adampur Air Base as a mere photo opportunity, Manmohan.
Yes, exactly. That is what he was referring to. That, these are secret weapons, these are sensitive weapons, and these should not be displayed in the open. The Prime Minister is unnecessarily, that was his accusation, that he is unnecessarily making these a selfie point for his self-promotion. And he said that it is a ceasefire mediated by a third country, and this now does not account to a full victory.
Okay. Thank you, Manmohan, for that quick update. BJP's Mohsin Raza joins us on the phone line. Mr. Raza, your thoughts. Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav has come out to call the Prime Minister going to Adampur Air Base a photo opportunity, says our arms and ammunition are not a photo booth. They are for the use of our forces to protect the country.
देखिए, हमेशा से आपने देखा होगा कि जो समाजवादी पार्टी है, जिसका चेहरा चाल चरित्र सब जानते हैं, और खास करके ये कांग्रेस के ही सहयोगी हैं, कांग्रेस और ये एक ही थैली के चट्टे बट्टे हैं, क्योंकि ये जिस तरह की बातें करते हैं, ये तो अपराधी जीवी हैं, ये तो अपराधियों को अपने साथ मंच पर लेकर घूमे, इन्होंने उत्तर प्रदेश को अपराध की आग में झोंका, फिर गोली जीवी हैं, इन्होंने जिस तरह से श्रद्धालु जा रहे थे अयोध्या में उन पर गोली चलवाई, तब इस पार्टी की स्थापना हुई है। तो इनको कौन कौन सा जीवी का नाम दिया जाए जो देश के लिए समर्पित है। देश का प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय मोदी जी जिस तरह से देश को आज शिखर पर ले गए, जिस तरह से हमारी सेना का मनोबल बढ़ा है, इन लोगों ने तो मनोबल तोड़ने का काम किया हमेशा। और रही बात की जो बात ये कर रहे हैं जिस तरह की, तो ये कितनी तरह के जीवी हैं, चाहे वो कांग्रेस हो, समाजवादी पार्टी हो, इन्होंने तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपराध जीवी किया है यहाँ उत्तर प्रदेश में, या गोली कांड कराए हैं, या सांप्रदायिक दंगे के जीवी हैं ये लोग। तो इन्होंने तो सारे काम ऐसे किए हैं कि जिससे कि पूरे शर्म से हम लोगों का जो है माथा झुक जाता था जब हम कहीं दूसरे राज्य में जाते थे, कि लोग उत्तर प्रदेश का नाम सुन के शर्माते थे कि साहब वहाँ महिलाओं के साथ में किस तरह का बर्ताव होता है, कैसे वहाँ पे अपराधियों का बोलबाला है, कैसे वहाँ का व्यापारी परेशान है, आम आदमी को कोई जगह नहीं देता था रुकने की। आज तो उत्तर प्रदेश का कहाँ मान बढ़ा, और खास करके अगर बात करें देश का मान बढ़ाने में उत्तर प्रदेश का बड़ा नेतृत्व तो ये है कि आदरणीय मोदी जी उत्तर प्रदेश के वाराणसी से आते हैं, तो अब इनको परेशानी इस बात की हो रही है कि ये कैसे कटाक्ष करें, कैसे किसी को अच्छाई की जो बात हो रही है उसके ऊपर,
क्योंकि अभी तक रजा साहब ऐसा लग रहा था, ऐसा प्रदर्शित हो रहा था कि कुछ दिन तक पहलगाम के बाद विपक्ष भी सरकार के साथ जुड़ा हुआ था, सरकार का पूरी तरह से साथ निभा रहा था। पर जब से प्रधानमंत्री ने नेशन को एड्रेस किया, नेशन से बातचीत करी, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर की बात करी, और खास तौर पे जब से तिरंगा यात्रा शुरू हुई है भाजपा की ओर से, तब से समाजवादी पार्टी और अन्य ऐसे नेता काफी खुश नहीं है।
आप ये बताइए, तिरंगा यात्रा तो हमने अपनी सेना के सम्मान में और देश के सम्मान में निकाली है, क्योंकि ये हम सब के लिए बड़े गर्व की बात है कि जिस तरह से हमारी बहनों के सिंदूर को जिन्होंने उजाड़ा था, हमने पाकिस्तान में बैठे उनके आकाओं के साथ उनको उजाड़ने का काम किया है। ये हमारे लिए, हमारी सेना के शौर्य की बात है, हमारे सबके लिए, एक एक हिंदुस्तानी के लिए गर्व की बात है। तो अगर इनको उस गर्व को नहीं मनाना है तो इसका मतलब ही यही, तभी तो हम कहते हैं ना कि ये लोग तो विदेशों से संचालित होने वाले लोग हैं, इन्हें देश में विश्वास नहीं है, ना देश के कानून में विश्वास है। इसलिए ये हमेशा जब कोई देशहित में काम किया जाएगा आदरणीय मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में, तब ये हमेशा, अभी तो कुछ दिन के बाद ये आपसे सबूत भी मांगेंगे ना, अभी तो सबूत मांगना शुरू करेंगे। अभी तो ये जीवी कर रहे हैं, चंदा जीवी कह देंगे, कभी चित्र जीवी कह देंगे। अरे तो आप तो अपराध जीवी हैं भाई, आपने तो अपराधीकरण वो किया उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर कि सबने देखा है, पूरे देश ने देखा है। और आज आपने आतंकियों को छोड़ने की बात की थी, हमने आतंकियों को घर में घुस के वहां पाकिस्तान के अंदर हमारी सेना ने मारा है। तो हमने तो अपनी बहनों को बदला भी लिया और उनको श्रद्धांजलि भी दी जो शहीद हुए थे पुलवामा में। तो ये आपने कभी सोचा भी नहीं होगा, आप तो अपराधियों को छोड़ने की और आतंकवादियों को ये लोग छोड़ने की बात करते हैं। और जिस कांग्रेस के साथ ये खड़े रहते हैं वो 3 बजे हमारे माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय को परेशान करती है कि आतंकवादी को फांसी न दीजिए, तो इनको तो बुरा लगेगा, इनके सीने पे सांप लौटेंगे।
चलिए रजा साहब, आपने जवाब दिया है, समाजवादी पार्टी को देखते हैं, अगर समाजवादी पार्टी इस मुद्दे पे फिर से बात करना चाहे तो क्या कहेगी। धन्यवाद मोहसिन रजा from the BJP for speaking with us and sharing your thoughts and views on this reaction that's coming from the Samajwadi Party chief. Here's a quick reminder of what was exactly spoken of by Akhilesh Yadav.
खोज रहे हैं, हमारी पार्टी अभी किसी की खोजबीन नहीं कर रही है। हमारी पार्टी जमीन पर काम करेगी। भारतीय जनता पार्टी अलग तरह से जमीन पर काम करती है और सच्चाई तो ये है कि इस बार चित्रजीवी नहीं बचेंगे, चित्रजीवी भी सत्ता से जाएंगे। जो दुश्मनों के लिए होती है तो मिसाइल वो सेल्फी पॉइंट नहीं बन सकता है। चित्रजीवियों को कम से कम ये स्वीकार करना चाहिए कि जो फौज के लिए है, जो फौज के लिए उनके लिए इस्तेमाल के लिए है, वो सेल्फी पॉइंट नहीं हो सकता है। इसलिए इस बार चित्रजीवी भी जा रहे हैं। और अभी मैं आज जब अखबार पढ़ रहा था, अब सरकार जागी है कि रिवर फ्रंट को और अच्छा करेंगे, जनता की भी सहभागिता लेंगे उसमें, जनता को भी शामिल कर करके। लेकिन मुझे जानकारी मिली है वहां से फुब्बारा चोरी हो गए हैं। ये फुब्बारा चोरी लोग, फुब्बारा चोर लोग दोबारा सत्ता में नहीं लौटने वाले। और अब ये क्या कहते हैं कि आने वाले समय में चूक नहीं होगी। सच्चाई तो यह है कि हम अपनी सीमाओं को इतना फौज से क्यों नहीं लैस कर देते हैं, या हमारी सीमाएं इतनी क्यों नहीं है सुरक्षित कि अगली बार चूक के लिए कोई गुंजाइश ही नहीं बने।
On that note, I do want to go across to Tariq Khan of the Samajwadi Party who joins us on the broadcast. Tariq Khan जी, ये बताइए कि क्या अखिलेश यादव जी ये नहीं समझते कि ऑपरेशन सिंदूर जो पाकिस्तान की तरफ लॉन्च किया गया था, पाकिस्तान में जो आतंकवाद के घर हैं उनको उड़ाने के लिए लॉन्च किया गया था, वो जो आर्म्ड फोर्सेज हैं हमारी, जो हमारी फौज है उसमें विजयी रही? तारिक खान जी,
देखिए, सेना के शौर्य पर देयर इज नो डाउट। वी ऑल हैव फील should feel pride about that, proud about that. But there has been few of the question. If Akhilesh ji has said that Modi ji is a Chitrajeevi, so it's the same type of thing. Modi ji has also said all the opposition, they are Andolan ji. So if you have this advantage to call opposition leader Andolan Jeevi, we can also call you Chitrajeevi. Means there has been a lot more important questions are there, which Prime Minister had to
Are we mixing politics with an issue that's brought the entire country together, Tariq Khan ji? That's my simple question to you. An operation was carried out to avenge Pahalgam. It was carried out. The entire nation is today speaking in one voice. Why are we hearing the Samajwadi Party chief then bring in his own set of politics?
Listen, this is not something that. And simply we have few of the question. That question should be asked by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is not addressing those things. Okay? They have started all types of yatra. What US President Trump is saying, he is not responding about that. Now there should be a Tiranga
But
yatra.
the ME has made it clear, Tariq Khan.
Everybody is
Mr.
agreed.
Tariq Khan, ME has made it clear. We just heard it from External Affairs. S. Jaishankar also say that India and Pakistan are going to bilaterally discuss this issue.
Listen to ma'am.
Do you want to believe Donald Trump or you want to believe your own Prime Minister and External Affairs Minister?
US President का मतलब क्या है? क्या वो नर्सरी क्लास का बच्चा है? क्या वो कंबोडिया का प्रेसिडेंट है? क्या वो नाइजीरिया का प्रेसिडेंट है?
खान साहब, क्या आप ये कह रहे हैं कि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की बात को हम ध्यान में रखेंगे पर प्रधानमंत्री और जयशंकर जी की बात को ध्यान में नहीं रखेंगे?
मुझे 10 सेकंड देंगी आप? प्रेसिडेंट इंडिया और पाकिस्तान को लेकर जो बातें कह रहा है, कश्मीर को एड्रेस करने की बात कर रहा है, क्या बात करेंगे हम कश्मीर पे? क्या प्राइम मिनिस्टर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं थी रिस्पॉन्ड करने की कि हमारी 48 घंटे से कोई बात नहीं हो रही है? एनडीए क्यों रिस्पॉन्ड करेगा? प्रेसिडेंट खुद बोल रहा है वहां का। हमारे प्रेसिडेंट बताते हैं कि हम उनके दोस्त हैं, अपने दोस्त से आप बात नहीं कर सकते। 3 बार वो ये कह रहे हैं वहां से कि हम ट्रेड बंद कर देंगे, हमने धमकी दी, हमने डाटा भारत को।
Tariq Khan ji, formal communication has come in. And I want to convey that to our viewers. The External Affairs Ministry has maintained very clearly that the Kashmir issue is a bilateral issue and India is only willing to talk to Pakistan on terrorism and POK. There is no scope of talking to Pakistan on Kashmir. It's very clearly been laid out. Thank you so much though for joining us with your perspective on this reaction that's coming from Akhilesh Yadav. Speaking of more news coming in, let's shift our attention to the CNN News 18 exclusive by Security Affairs Editor Manoj Gupta. According to intel sources, we're learning Baloch are hopeful after the Indian victory in Operation Sindoor. The Baloch Liberation Army has appealed to India for diplomatic and material support. Baloch say they want to fight against Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism. In fact, Baloch leaders like Miryar Baloch have publicly declared independence, and Pakistan, as per highly placed sources were learning, is facing serious backlash in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. I want to go across to Siddhant Mishra, who joins us with more details. Baloch declaring independence is not new, Siddhant, but piece this together for us and what Manoj Gupta is highlighting in terms of what this could mean in the future for Pakistan.
Well, yes, that's right. In fact, this input has been sent to us by Securities Editor Manoj Gupta. In fact, he is reporting that Baloch are hopeful after Indian victory in Operation Sindoor. Their morale is high. Baloch group view India as a strategic counterweight to Pakistan. The Baloch Liberation Army has appealed to India for diplomatic and material support. Baloch says they want to fight against Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism. Baloch leaders Miryar Baloch have publicly declared independence. Indian victory is against two countries, Pakistan and China. Pakistan has no faith and no confidence to fight Balochi people. Pakistan is facing serious internal crisis, including economic collapse, political instability, and threat from Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Lashkar and Jaish. Serious backlash in provinces like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. We have hopes from India. In fact, that is what Balochis have to say after India's increasing military power and global stature. So, after India showcased its military might and diplomatic might in last 3 weeks, perhaps Balochis have been more hopeful, have become more hopeful as far as India is concerned. We expect India to help with international human rights community and raise our voice in enforced disappearance and killing in Balochistan by Pakistan forces. So they want now India to raise their concern at the international level. If not raising, then perhaps to support them at the international level. In fact, they also hope that unmatched guerrilla warfare expertise which Pakistan forces don't have Baloch Liberation Army BLA and Baloch Raji Ajoy Sangar BRAS are experts in ambush, ID attacks and sabotage especially. We have survived even after brutal crackdowns by Pakistan Army. We have increased our operational sophistication with 71 coordinated attacks across 51 locations in Balochistan. This is to fight against our motherland, which is sold to China by Pak Army and Pakistan Punjabi leaders. So, Manoj is reporting that how this entire Baloch movement has suddenly become more. They have become more hopeful as far as India is concerned, because now they have full faith in India. Before this also, they used to trust India. They used to see India as a counterweight to Pakistan. Now they are more hopeful because now they see that, okay, so there is one power in the region which can back them if needed, because they according to them, Pakistan and China are the joint forces which are perhaps oppressing them. This is what Balochis tell us. So India could be the counterweight to that, and Manoj is reporting that after this Operation Sindoor and the strikes that we have done into Pakistan, perhaps that has given a lot of hopes to Balochis. Now they
absolutely. So they've reached out to India, but they've also at the same time highlighted the plight, the atrocities they've had to face from the Pakistani authorities. Many thanks, Siddhant, for getting us all those details. Shifting our focus now to how Indian officials briefed the monitoring team of the UN Security Council's 1267 Sanctions Committee on the activities of the Resistance Front, the group behind the Pahalgam terror attack. An Indian technical team is visiting New York to interact with the monitoring team of the Sanctions Committee and other partner countries in the United Nations. The team also met representatives of the UN Office of Counter-Terrorism and Counter-Terrorism Committee Exclusive Directorate. The team's visit is part of efforts by India to get the TRF designated as global terrorist group. TRF, remember, claimed responsibility for the Pahalgam attack twice, and Pakistan, a non-permanent member of the UNSC, has been protecting TRF at the Council with backing from China for a long time now. Going across to Siddhant Mishra on that note once again. Siddhant, tell us about this interaction that went underway. Once again, India looking at strict action against TRF after Pakistan attempted to downplay its role in the Pahalgam attack earlier. Okay, we'll just reconnect with Siddhant Mishra, who will join us for more details on the same. But this is once again a push by India seeking a ban on TRF by the United Nations. Do remember, let's not forget, the political class in Pakistan has sought to downplay TRF's role. In fact, wanted to clear its name of the Security Council statement earlier and managed to do so conveniently as well, which did raise several questions on why that kind of a platform is being given to Pakistan. Do remember, there are several official admissions that have been made by the political leadership of Pakistan in how it has backed terror in the past, and yet we saw the fact that Pahalgam was eliminated from that UNSC statement. Kashmir was included, TRF also eliminated, and India wanting to raise it with the United Nations once again. Speaking of which, breaking news coming in. We're also learning that Donald Trump has changed his tune on ceasefire. He says, I won't say I did it, but sure as helped from I did it to I won't say I did it. This is Donald Trump's latest comment coming in attempt to downplay his earlier stance on how he was to be given full credit of the ceasefire that was agreed upon between India and Pakistan. Let's listen in to what exactly has been said by US President Donald Trump this time around.
And by the way, I don't want to say I did, but I sure as hell helped settle the problem between Pakistan and India last week, which was getting more and more hostile. And all of a sudden you'll start seeing missiles of a different type.
Siddhant Mishra continues to stay on with us. Siddhant, very interesting indeed, because the first reaction to the world on a ceasefire struck between India and Pakistan came in from US President Donald Trump, and now we see him downplay that effort. He says he surely did help the two nations.
Well, look, indeed, India was in touch with its friends and partners, but this particular contact which India established at that point in time was only to keep them apprised of the situation, perhaps since there were a lot of calls which were being made to New Delhi. In fact, NSA Doval, EMS Jaishankar, Prime Minister Modi himself spoke to many world leaders. Perhaps, this was only to keep India's position transparent, and perhaps also to, show the world that India has got nothing to hide. Whatever India is doing to defend its own territory and also to destroy the terror camps in POJK and POK. Perhaps in that context only these calls were entertained by New Delhi. Now President Trump suddenly comes and takes the credit of doing the mediation between India and Pakistan. Perhaps is something which has surely not gone down well with the Indian side, and in fact Indian government the other day at the press briefing, spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal again stated India's position that there was no mediation which took place as far as this understanding is concerned, and perhaps India will never entertain any third-party mediation as far as issue of Kashmir is concerned. Having said that, if you go by the second day statement of President Trump, so on first day he used the word mediate. On the second day, he used the word "I help," and perhaps in the second day statement there was no mention of Kashmir also. This is very important to remind to our viewers. Then again, he was in Saudi Arabia. He makes a statement that I got it done, and both these countries should go out on a dinner. Now he's saying that I have not mediated, but I have helped. Perhaps that is a typical Trumpian style. I would put it this way. This is typical Trumpian style to take credit, and also the words that are being
But
used.
would it be wrong to say, Siddhant, that this softening of stance on the kind of role that US played in the ceasefire talks also stems from the fact that the External Affairs Ministry, the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar have made it amply clear that these are bilateral dealings with no third country having any role to play?
Absolutely, and because this tune change could also be the result of the tough position which Indian government has taken, right after President Trump taking credit of the understanding deals between India and Pakistan. Yesterday, spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal, made India's position very clear. Today, EMS Jaishankar, in fact, short while back, we did run his soundbite where he said that there is no talk of mediation. The understanding has been reached, and the only credit which needs to be given is to be given to our armed forces, Indian armed forces, which got Pakistan down on its knees. So since the Indian side was also not happy with it, maybe that could be one reason that there is a tune change in what President Trump was saying before.
Yes, absolutely. From taking full credit of the talks that took place between India and Pakistan to now saying that he surely did help. He will not say that he did it. Many thanks, Siddhant, for getting us all those details. Very interesting reaction indeed coming in from US President Donald Trump. That's all we could pack for you for now in this edition of News. Up next, Nation at 5 with Poonam Bunde. Keep watching.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which remember houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha, it looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps, where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills, and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area, and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international nuclear watchdog is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that...
Good evening. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Nation at 5 here on CNN News 18 with me, Poonam Burde. There is lots lined up for you on this edition, but we're going to get you started with some breaking news that's now coming in, and this is a CNN News 18 exclusive. Information that we're gathering from our sources within the intelligence agencies is that there's trouble brewing in Balochistan for Pakistan. The Baloch are hopeful after India's victory in Operation Sindoor. The Baloch Liberation Army has now appealed to India for diplomatic and material support against Pakistan. Baloch say that they are ready to fight the Pakistani state and the state-sponsored terrorism. Baloch leaders have publicly declared independence, is what we're now learning. Pakistan is facing serious backlash, at least in two provinces, which is in Sindh and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. There has been trouble brewing within these Balochi leaders, the Balochi activists who've come out and questioned the Pakistani army, the ISI, the Pakistani government for what they claim are excesses by the Pakistani army. We've seen several such protests take place in Balochistan for months together. Now, after Operation Sindoor and India striking hard at Pakistan's military installations, the Baloch Liberation Army and other groups within Balochistan are hopeful that they can, with India's support, declare independence, take down the Pakistani state. Even as Pakistan continues to claim victory during this particular operation, the proof of Pakistan getting hit and getting hit hard is there for the world to see. India's Operation Sindoor has not only hit Pakistan's military installations, it has also exposed the fault lines in Chinese arms and Chinese weaponry that Pakistan has been using. The Baloch people are now hopeful that this could be the time where their dream of independence could be realized. For decades together, Balochistan has been wanting to declare independence. The Baloch people have been raising their voice against enforced disappearances, against atrocities of the Pakistani army. Now, as the Pakistani army reels under this onslaught, this offensive from the Indian side, the Baloch Liberation Army, other activist groups from Balochistan are hopeful that their dream of independence, that their dream of finally coming out of Pakistan Army's thumb could perhaps be realized. Akanksha, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Akanksha, the success of Operation Sindoor has given hope to some activists, to some groups within Balochistan now?
Absolutely, and it was shortly just days before Poonam that they had also released a press release where they had talked about how the entire Baloch operation is now open to Indian assistance. Of course, Indian government sources have always told CNN News 18 that they respect the territorial integrity of Pakistan, and they will not be joining hands with the Baloch army. But we've seen the kind of sway that the Balochis have in Pakistan. This was amply evident after the hijacking of Jafar Express. And they have again, of course, Baloch leaders like Mir Yar Baloch have publicly declared independence. Indian victories against two countries, Pakistan and China. That's what they've said, that is not just against Pakistan, and Pakistan has no faith and no confidence to fight the Balochi people. Pakistan is facing severe internal crisis, including economic collapse, that is political instability and threat from TTP, even Lashkar and Jaish, and serious backlash in provinces like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. They're saying that they have survived brutal crackdowns by the Pakistan army, and that the Balochis have increased their own operational sophistication with 71 coordinated attacks across 51 locations in Balochistan in May 2025 alone. They have the Baloch Liberation Army and Baloch Raj Ajoy Sangar, which is the BRAS, are experts in ambush, IED attacks and sabotage, especially against military convoys and CPEC infrastructure. So that's a direct challenge also to China when they are talking about CPEC infrastructure, Poonam. And they've amply made it clear that by seizing highways at various, crossways, even destroying military checkposts of the Pakistani army, and by hoisting Baloch flags, they have also attacked gas pipelines, mineral transport vehicles and Chinese BRI and CPEC projects. And that they are now expressing that they are very hopeful of attacks on CPEC infrastructure like Gwadar Port are going to attract countries against China, and that means that will also call for greater US interest in this entire region. So the Balochis have also thrown an open invitation to India. India, of course, being the democracy that is also respected at a global level, is not going to take up that invite, but they have said that they are very willing and they already are fighting against Pakistan state-sponsored terrorism. Poonam.
We have seen, Akanksha, the kind of protests that have broken out in Balochistan. That sort of liberation movement has been going on for decades together, but this Operation Sindoor and its success has given renewed hope. We've seen how on several global platforms as well, these Balochi activists, these leaders have often petitioned for the world to come and recognize the kind of excesses that are meted out to the Baloch people by the Pakistani army.
True. And they have had enough, because as you rightly said, that there is persecution of the Balochis, which has been, constantly chronicled when it is about various Baloch activists who have been brutally massacred. And that is why they now, as I rightly highlighted, that these leaders like Mir Yar Baloch have already declared a fight for the Baloch independence. And even though Indians have refuted the Pakistani claims that India is running a proxy war through the Balochis, something that the Balochis themselves have also endorsed, that no, there is no external hand by India's forces, but time and again they have made overtures that India must join in. But their own declaration that the Indian victory is not just against Pakistan, it is also against China. So while Pakistan, China and Turkey, along with Bangladesh, may want to open their own new axis, there is another front which is opening up against Pakistan, because remember, many of these Balochis have had their own bases in Iran. So it's not just the Baloch, but the Iranians and the Afghanis who are turning against Pakistan, and that in itself is opening one of the most threatened border areas for Pakistan. Several security experts have already said that the LOC and the international border that Pakistan shared with India was perhaps the most peaceful till they threatened us with the Pahalgam terror attack.
Right, Akanksha, thank you so much for getting us perspective on that front. More breaking news as we are not picking up now is the army chief has visited forward locations in Srinagar, Uri. That is what we're learning. He's personally congratulated and motivated troops for their exceptional performance during Operation Sindoor. The message that has come to the fore, it's one word but speaks volumes. Shabash was what the army chief said when he met these personnel, these Jawans there at these forward locations in Srinagar and Uri for carrying out Operation Sindoor successfully. The kind of messaging that has come to the fore is from the highest political offices of the Prime Minister, of the Raksha Mantri today as well. Now, the Army Chief too coming out and lauding his team his forces for effectively implementing Operation Sindoor and putting Pakistan in its place. Akash, my colleague, joins us, getting us more details. Akash, what more can you tell us about Army Chief's message, or what exactly transpired during his visit?
Shabash is one word that was in fact said by Army Chief in his address to the troops, where he visited forward areas of Uri. In fact, Uncha Basti is one area where we have the logistical, station of Indian Army, where their Indian Army chiefs visited and in fact interacted with the troops. We have been discussing, Poonam, about the sort of motivation that is required for the troops who are deployed in the forward areas, and this was one such motivation where Army Chief visited the areas and in fact interacted with the troops and in fact appreciated the sort of efforts that they had put into the Operation Sindoor. We know how successful the operation was. We know it for a fact. And now, while Raksha Mantri and Army Chief, people like them visiting these troops, so it is a morale booster for them. And Shabash is one word that, was very much used by the Indian Army Chief for these troops. In fact, Army Chief visited Srinagar with Raksha Mantri, and while he went to 15 Corps headquarters, he also made sure that he's visiting the forward areas where a lot of shelling was coming in the past few days, specifically during the time when Operation Sindoor, was launched. We know that how Pakistan was, involved in the ceasefire violation, where they were sending, in fact, they were, involved in the high caliber firing, heavy caliber firing from the other side of the LC. And when they were using the howitzers, against India at the line of control, at that time Indian troops were retaliating. We have lost our 5 men. We know it for a fact. But then too, this visit has played an important role, because a morale booster, is something that was in fact required. This visit was required, and boost is also required at a time when you are away from the family, away from your loved ones, and you are living in such harsh conditions, Poonam.
Absolutely. Thank you, Akash, for getting us the latest on that front. My colleague Anna Narsimhan will take you forward with the rest of this broadcast. We have a very special lineup for you of how exactly India thwarted all of the misadventures, all of the attacks that Pakistan had planned for us.
Major Manik Jolly is back with us, and we'll try and deconstruct 2 aspects. First up is, let's talk about Bharat's integrated air defense system. This is something that we touched upon and we've been talking about it again and again. But Major Manik Jolly, this is we need to understand this better, because what starts at a ground level, or something which is within my eyesight, that is about 1 to 2 kilometers, to about something which is far away and has not even entered Bharat's boundaries. Now, how do we try and counter something like that? So let's try and understand. Let's start from closest to us to the farthest from us. So first up, we will talk about the basic traditional air guns which are used to shoot down something like drones, the first layer, so multi-layered system. So can you explain to us?
So even before this, we can bring down a anti-drone rifle now.
Okay.
That have been given to guards, Garuds in Air Force, other soldiers guarding the bases and station, because that becomes the last and a very final defensive line for smaller drones. Because what happens is, even though you have this entire spectrum of defense layer, sometimes these drones are really tiny, like a stretch of this hand, right?
Right.
So the radars don't pick up, the lasers can't point to them effectively, the whatever weapons you're firing at them, they miss them. But the rifles catch them very well.
Right.
Because these are laser guided, you can point at them, it's like a rifle shooting on a target.
Right. So the first layer is not just the L-70. Can we go back to the first layer, please? I'm going to request our team to just go slowly, one by one, each layer. So the first layer, what Major Manik Jolly is saying, is the counter-drone manpads, which may have the L-70 anti-aircraft guns and the Shilka also. So there are guns and there's also Shilka, but you are saying that there are also basic air guns. Basic air guns that can shoot the smaller drones, which cannot be perhaps caught by radar.
Yes, and if the system that is in development now, the anti-drone laser system, that will complement that system, because that will be not only automatic, manual controls, laser guided, everything. And it will be able to take out these smaller drones, which are the more of a nuisance thing when the drone swarms come.
Right, and in this case, if we have the Shilka and these guns, the 23mm Zu-23 all come into this, they are the ones who can fire thousands of rounds in just a minute. So it can actually cover the sky to ensure that wherever it flies, at least one of them will catch it.
If you remember one of the greatest scenes of opening Band of Brothers, second or first episode, there are these guys ready to jump out of the plane, and all around there is anti-aircraft guns bursting. That is what more or less this is.
Okay.
It covers the sky with lead, with not a particular aim as much as covering it with lead, and somehow hoping it will strike.
It will
and
strike.
Since they've done a fantastic job, it means they did strike.
Now, are these the ones that we saw the flares with?
Oh yeah, these are the ones that you.
These are the ones which we saw the flares with. So when we are saying the flares travel, so these are these guns that work.
Yes, these are the same.
Okay, so this is a range of 2 to 25 kilometers.
Yes.
At least 2 to 25 kilometers within line of sight.
Yes.
Let's look at the next layer, the second layer. What is the second layer? The second layer is, say, a range of, say, 25 to 70 kilometers, where you have the point air defense, short range surface to air missiles. So the SR-SAMs, as they are called.
Akash and everything, they take over. Now they require a much more calibrated approach, where your electronic systems take on, radars take on, AVACs take on. We spoke about that yesterday.
Yeah.
The entire EW network expands itself. It identifies the missiles. So we also know where enemy is, and they also know where we are.
Correct.
More or less, let's say, take it that way. When the missiles take off, even if you don't know, you detect, the system detects a missile in the environment, all the radars lock onto it. So let's say we are doing a test that a missile takes off, which is within your territory. It will disregard it. They will not get activated. But the moment the trajectory or the direction, speed, anything identifies it is coming to you, they get activated automatically. There's a lot of, the manual interference is very minimal here.
Very minimal, yeah.
And these guys take off, and like we spoke about the point of impact yesterday,
they
try and gauge what is the best point to hit it. So it should, like the range is, let's say, 50 kilometers of a missile.
Right.
It wouldn't be wanting to hit it at 50 first. It also wants a very solid point of impact. So it's right, and it doesn't want to let it go outside its range. So you work on the parabola. These systems are very, very millisecond kind of thing.
So this missile will go up like this. There is an enemy missile which is coming up, which is already part of this parabola. So you will look at perhaps the highest point and where this interception will happen, where it is the optimum point, and that is something it calculates.
Yeah, so we often see it in 2D, right? Whenever see a missile goes like this, you are hitting like this. It's a very 3D concept actually, all three vectors
dimensions
working,
come into play. Vectors.
Because even the range of missile, though it is point to point, it does follow a path to manage that point of impact.
Okay.
It might have to, even if it's coming like this, it might have to go a little like this to manage that. Again, it's magic of computers.
So it's smart. It's smart. So let's move to the third layer. So this is, say, 2 to 70 kilometers has been covered. What happens in the third layer? So the third layer goes anywhere from about 30 kilometers to about 100 kilometers, and this is where the MR-SAMs, or the medium range surface to air missiles, and this is the entire Akash Tir. So this is how Akash Tir comes into play. So can you explain, this is again now from here to here the trigger. How does that happen?
So as you would guess, the first thing would be the weapon systems being used here. If the weapon system here has only 30 kilometers range, there is no point of this taking off for something that is a 100 kilometer range.
Correct.
So that is the defining difference here.
So there is an optimization which is also programmed or coded.
That is the beauty of Akash Tir. It is not just about launching weapon after another. It gives a three-dimensional view to identify the target very effectively. It is very effective in friendly fire. That is one of the greatest features it has. It will not start. So it will not start hitting our own missiles going in the same battlefield.
Correct.
It will not pick up our own missile, because one can assume if it is picking up every missile, why not our own? It has a very solid friendly fire, caution also. Second, we spoke about the range. Third is the kind of missile. Not every missile can take out every missile. So that specification is also listed out. Let's say when it goes beyond something, the S-400s will take.
Correct.
Someday S-500s or other systems will take.
Kusha will come. We talked about
So,
Kusha, which is going to be far more advanced than an S-400. So the S-400 is the fourth layer of this entire Chakravyuha or Sudarshan Chakra as it's called. So let's call up the fourth layer, that is the S-400. So the S-400 then opens up this entire expanse right deep into the enemy territory, or even perhaps at their silos if it is required.
Yes, for sure. And also the thing is that this is our one of the solid defense against their ICBMs or something, their long range missiles. Because a single ICBM is like a massive thing.
Yeah, so ICBM is an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Sorry about that. So what it does is that these are like massive missiles carrying a lot of payload, very solid. You need to have something as solid as that to take it out. Even if you hit something, but you do not have the enough momentum or warhead, you can't impact that, right? Like we spoke also about, nobody has answered to BrahMos.
Correct.
It is because of the speed and the size and everything combined.
Correct.
So same way S-400 and Kusha in future are something that are potential enough to take out enemies' ICBM.
But their thing is these are surface to air. They are not surface to surface or they are not surface to sea. So the S-400 is largely guarding the land mass and the land area from any strike that is coming from the skies. So let's try and understand the 4 layers. The ground layer, the first layer, when you have your T-70s, you got the 23 Zu-23 guns and the air guns basically, which look at the small projectiles, small ones, close range. That's where it's targeted, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Yeah. The second layer is a short range missile system. So this is a range of say anywhere between 30 to 100 kilometers.
Why don't we take a moment to understand why the layers
25 to 30 kilometers. Okay.
The shortest range, the guy shooting down the drone will be a small drone.
Correct.
It will be, if the drone comes and hits here, both of us might get amputated or die something. Very limited range of damage, right?
Yeah.
Hence, you have a smaller system to negotiate them. The moment you get into 25-70 kilometer range, it is a missile.
It is a missile.
It can take out a room, it can destroy a building, it can take out a group of people, that can.
So the payload or the ammunition that it has is far greater scale, so the damage it can inflict is far greater compared to a drone or a small drone.
Yeah, it's the basic logic that is, defining the battlefield.
So let me ask you, Major Jolly. Okay, so then let's. So the next level again comes the size of the projectile as it grows, and here is where the aircrafts also come into play between the SR SAMs and the MR SAMs.
Exactly.
So this is where these are the ones that will go ahead and target aircrafts. Sometimes these guns, the Shilkas, also come in handy.
Oh, of course. You've seen them firing. So the role, as in the role of entire air defense, get activated once airplanes are there. Airplanes are in the picture. So everybody is firing. They have pretty effective range. The low flying planes they can take on. It's just that now the airplanes are so advanced they don't even have to enter enemy battlefield.
Correct.
They'll fire. So they are pretty much ineffective.
Ineffective against an aircraft that comes into the zone, but then aircraft that are firing from a distance, you have the S-400s or perhaps the MR SAMs that come into play for a range of say about up to 100
right from QR SAMs, MR SAMs to S-400, all this is airspace. But if you have a contested space and enemy is entering with Air Force something, everything will come in force.
Where does the Bhargavastra, which is going to be tested to against swarms of drones? Now, will that then come into the first layer itself of the air defense system?
I'm not sure exactly what is the range they are aiming for, but since it is working on jamming and dropping them, this is not like a explosive thing. I think it will be 100% effective to the range it acquires. We have seen some videos where hundreds of drones were dropped just by jamming.
Correct.
Fine, those are commercial drones. It's easier, and whereas the combat zones are much more complicated. But once we achieve that, it is a bubble of jamming that will happen, and all radars, all drones will then just drop.
Now, but if all drones suddenly drop and they are loaded with TNT or explosives, wherever they drop, there will be explosion. If these are kamikaze or designed in such a way, so that is something again which we'll have to factor in.
Hence, that is where the tactics of battlefield come in, right?
Okay.
So if I'm stationed here and this is my base, I would not like to drop them over myself. You drop them right where the no man's land is. The moment they enter, that is where the wall is. They drop in no man's land, empty fields. That is how you will. I want to take a moment to say something, right?
Yeah.
The technology is with everybody.
Correct.
It's not I can say HQ9 or PL-15s were bad. They were good, right? We also have tech. Pakistan has tech. China has. Everybody has tech. I think what in the entire time we've been talking about Ops Sindoor, we forgot the skill set of Indian Army officers.
So let's call the command system center, that is BEL, Bharat Electricals Limited, has made this entire integrated, designed this entire integrated system. And I think these are the officers and people who need our salute, because they've been able to make machines which are made on divergent platforms talk to each other.
There was there was conversation going on last year. Some defense experts were talking and they're saying, we have bought Rafale and we have Russian radars and Israel. They don't talk to each other. Our defense system is full. They were calling names, right?
Right.
But see, it's proven, right? Why would they buy something that does not talk to each other? They're a very effective system. They've proven its worth. And also I would another thing like to say, the air defense, Corps of Air Defense of Indian Army, while Pakistani officers are busy selling plots and running pizza chains, these guys have been training, honing their skills, deploying their assets in perfect tactical situation, and the result is for everyone to see.
Right.
So just a hat tip to air defense of both Army and Air Force.
No, but in this case, is this program that makes perhaps for just common parlance, an iPhone talk to an Android, talk to a radio set, talk to a divergent perhaps pad, smart pad, all of them talking to each other and activating each other simultaneously. So it's a Russian-made S-400 missile. There is an indigenous Akash Tir here.
Yes.
There is an Israeli procured radar here systems. So how are each
and
of them?
there's a French plane flying in between.
There is a French plane flying amidst all of this. So how do they talk to each other? And this is something which is domestically being done.
Yes. So typically you would not have one system, indigenous system of one country talking to each other naturally, right? But Akash Tir has created that capability where that gap has been filled. So everybody is connected. Everybody is aware of what the situational awareness is phenomenal right now. And that is the result. If your planes were flying blind, right, they're not able to talk to each other. They were flying in where missiles are flying, where artillery is, they would know what to do.
Right.
So we have achieved that in Akash Tir. The situational awareness, the electronic warfare has advanced to a great level.
But also, does the cost also escalate?
Most definitely.
As we go up the gradient, is the also cost of air defense going up?
That L-70 around would be a few thousand rupees. And there we are reaching millions of dollars. Hence the differentiation between a strategic weapon versus something that can be used more sparingly. You can fire 10,000 rounds of L-70 and hit 5 drones maybe.
Correct.
But you have to fire one S4 and get the hit for sure.
Sure.
That is why when Kusha will come, Kusha has a hit rate of 98%.
Wow.
98%.
So वो निकला तो फिर निशाने पर जाकर ही रहेगा. It is confirmed. So almost near confirmed that it's going to find.
So we will have two things, right?
Yeah.
When we fire BrahMos, nobody is stopping it.
Correct.
You fire something, we have Kusha. We are stopping everything.
So we are solid in our defense, but we are also unbeatable in our offense. So that's the situation.
Matter of I think 3 more years when they plan to deploy Kusha.
Matter of I think 3 more years.
Yeah.
All right. So that is the entire air defense conversation. Major Manik Jolly, thank you very much. But now what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask you to walk with us to this wall, and I'm going to request our viewers also to pay your attention. Now there are two big developments that happened. Major Manik Jolly, before he decided to say bye to the uniform and became a veteran himself, was with the Gorkha Rifles. So Ayo Gorkhali is your shout out, and he's operated in this region. This is Jammu and Kashmir, and where there is a reason why we are bringing this up right now. Only earlier in the day, the confirmation has happened in Tral. The 3 more terrorists have been neutralized. Those 3, we'll try and put those pictures up also. Asif Ahmed Sheikh, Amir Nazir Wani, and Yawar Ahmed Bhatt. Yawar Ahmed Bhatt is a Pakistani, he's an FT, he's from Jaish. And the other 2, one is from Mungama in Tral, and the second one is from Khasipura in Tral. Now this is close to in Shopaya, this region. This is Tral. Now this is Tral, and further down in this region we will have Shopaya, and here is Pahalgam. So if I may move this map here, so this is Pahalgam here. So let's try and understand. Now this region is Pahalgam, where 22nd April happens, Major?
Yep.
Correct? Now this is Tral. This is where today's attack has happened. So let's say 15th of May, 1505.
Yeah.
And then Shopaya comes here, somewhere here, doesn't it? Further down.
Yeah.
So we will get Shopaya is somewhere here in this region only. Shopaya is somewhere here. I'll just mark that out in a bit. So Shopaya happens day before yesterday.
Okay.
So 6 terrorists have been neutralized in this region. Now, what is important and why is Tral so important? Why is this region Tral so important?
So Tral has been a hotbed of terrorism for very long.
And explain the terrain of Tral, how easy, difficult is it? And explain to our viewers this entire encounter mechanism. How does this happen?
So,
okay. So this red dot, this is Chopin. Okay. So this happens, this is on the 13th. This is 1305. So in this region, so Pahalgam wala region and this region, it's almost very similar that these terrorists are all hovering around in this area. So this is Pahalgam. So here is Pahalgam, here is Tral, and here is Chopin. So this is the line in this area. Ji.
So I'll tell you, this is typically a small valley that is coming down, a gap. So you would always have terrorists coming down, hiding in forests, and coming down into valley to go to, you know, people, small villages, residential area for food, cover, connectivity with OGWs, all that. Right? So I can't go into too much detail.
Correct.
What we try and do is catch them where they are most vulnerable.
Okay, let's just expand Tral a bit and explain the terrain to us. Is it easy, difficult? Why is this a hotbed? Why is Tral a hotbed for a lot of the terrorists, this region?
So, you see these mountains?
Yeah.
And you see this plain starting?
Yeah.
When they converge into this bowl kind of a thing, it means your terrorists in tracks or groups are coming down and they're taking this part to go into the entire area which is populated. So this becomes a narrow passage. Tral has been active only because it is a very important route.
Right.
So many areas in Kashmir become very active because they were very critical routes. Like in Kupwara there were some, or you know, here you have Tral. So we also try and catch them where the small bottlenecks are.
Right. So, so where you think that they will also be caught. But because if I look at Tral, around Tral, this entire region, it's empty, right? This is quite a big stretch where there is not too much of population, vegetation. There's a lot of vegetation, but not too much population. So this is empty area. So this, and like you said, it's coming down the mountains.
This is what typically called by foothills.
Foothills.
So you can't have village house. There might be some beheks or doks and all that. That's all right. But the main villages will start from here, where you see small nala. So water, right? When the water sources start catching up, reaching where you can use it, you'll start seeing villages coming up.
Correct.
So what it does is that even though it is empty area, but when it snows, when the vegetation is up, it looks very different on map. On ground, it has a lot of contours. So even if you are walking in a land where there's a small land contour of 1 or 2 meters, you effectively can continue walking in that for a long time, invisible.
Invisibly.
That is what these bowls give access to these tracks coming in. The contours and the gaps in land are very good for them.
Right. So now when you are planning an op and when you're doing some, if I'm just going to pull this back a bit, this here, and we are in Tral and there is Pahalgam. Pahalgam पहाड़ी में है पूरा सर. ये पूरा पहाड़ी में. ये पूरा पहाड़ी इलाका है. This is all tourist area. Yes. This is also valley. So it's easy for terrorists to, you know, slip, give the security forces the slip and the cordon, because if I look at this, ये तो जंगल है. जंगल में ढूंढने में क्या तकलीफ है? What is the problem? Many people may turn around and ask.
That's the thing. So you and I are like 2 meters apart.
Correct.
You step 2 more meters.
Right.
You'll be invisible to me.
In these jungles.
That thick is the vegetation. That is the thing people don't understand, that it is not only how taxing it is physically to walk in tough vegetations, right? It is rough vegetations and dense vegetation. It is also the invisibility that makes it so difficult, and drones are also ineffective because the tree cover is so high.
Yeah, the vegetation, lot of pines and you know, the trees themselves are very dense. You don't get.
So people say, why not heat signature? If you don't have visibility, there is no picking up of heat signature. That's some you know, ray has to come back to give you that heat signature.
Right.
So drones become pretty much ineffective.
Right.
You have to have line of sight for that signature to come.
Right.
So effectively, hundreds of us, you, me, and 98 more, would take a very long time to cover even a small stretch, because we don't do jungle bashing for the heck of it.
Right.
We check every nook, corner, because there are underground also, right?
Right.
Small
caves also. Caves possible.
Caves and hideouts and all
hideouts
that.
possible.
It's a very taxing, tedious, slow process.
Taxing, tedious, slow process. How an operation happens. Let's imagine the distance between me and Major Manik Jolly is less than about 1.5 meters. Another 1 meter, I'll go out of the frame, but that means I'll also go out of his line of sight or vision, especially in these areas, that is Tral. So not easy conducting ops and also neutralizing terrorists in regions like this that we are seeing. Tral, Chopin, and that too after when they are coming to this side of the mountain, post Pahalgam. Were they directly linked to Pahalgam or not? We are not yet sure, but that is subject. But clearly the operations, our forces are out there to neutralize whatever terrorist footprint that is in Jammu and Kashmir. We're going to take a very, very short break. Major Jolly, thank you very much. Yeah, quickly, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, just one quick thing. The fact that security forces have concentrated here, they've taken down 2 tracks, 3 here, and they are in that line, it means the activity was there. What Indian Army has done is effectively cover down. These could be backups.
Right.
These could be supporting, people. These could be somebody who are helping them escape. There could be 10 versions, but the fact that they're still hanging around in the same area around,
right,
it means there was a possibility they were connected.
Right. So this is the stretch. Yeah. This is the stretch, and this is where the activity is. There is Pahalgam here, there is Shopaya here, and there is Tral in this area, and that's where the activity currently is concentrated as far as the security forces is concerned. On that note, we're going to take a very, very short break. Stay with us. Stay with us.
They have code-named this operation Operation Sindoor. The Indian Army, through Operation Sindoor, has hit 9 targets.
You try to target our bases, you try to target our capital, or you try to target our cities, we will hit you so hard that you will not be able to fly your machine.
News coming out that nervous Pakistan is seeming to wave the white flag.
This is what Manoj Gupta is bringing for us, this piece of information that Pakistan wants to de-escalate.
As we slip into evening on May 10, Donald Trump, US President, has now announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire.
Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that both India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which, remember, houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha. It looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills, and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area, and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international watchdog, nuclear watchdog, is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that, this means that the matter has now been globally put to rest. Glad, Siddhant, that you mentioned what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti had to say, because let's play out his reaction when he was the first one to dismiss all of those rumors. Let's listen in to what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti said.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
All right. I go back to Siddhant on that note. Siddhant, of course, it was peppered with a bit of sarcasm when he had responded to that query. But I think what's most important right now is to indicate that the IAEA, which is the global nuclear watchdog, when it steps in and declares that there has been no radioactive leak so far, that also lays to rest all of those reports that were doing the rounds, that perhaps there was a US intervention which was being sought, perhaps there was a Chinese intervention that was being sought, as you rightly highlighted, that there's been a lot of chatter ever since and panic on both.
Thank you for staying with us here on Nation at 5. I'm Poonam Burde. India's precision airstrikes during the recent 4-day conflict with Pakistan have left behind a trail of destruction. Global media is now echoing what India had claimed all along. New York Times, Washington Post, after reviewing high-resolution satellite imagery and aftermath visuals, confirmed extensive damage to Pakistan's military infrastructure. The New York Times said India had a clear edge, with damage mostly inflicted by India on Pakistani airfields. It reports that India hit high-value targets like the Noor Khan Air Base just miles from Pakistan's army headquarters. Meanwhile, the Washington Post called it the most extensive Indian airstrike since the 1971 war. Its analysis confirms that runways, hangars, Air Force buildings were hit at least across 6 Pakistani bases, some as deep as 100 miles inside the country. Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar sent out a loud and clear message just a short while ago to Pakistan. He said India's goal is to dismantle terror, which the country has achieved. He also said that the Indus Water Treaty will remain in abeyance and talks with Pakistan will only and always be on terror.
Talks with Pakistan. I think the Prime Minister made it very clear that the only talks with Pakistan will be on terror. That Pakistan has a list of terrorists who need to be handed over. They have to shut down the terrorist infrastructure. They know what to do. We are prepared to discuss with them what is to be done on terrorism. Those are the talks which are feasible. Water issues have been raised. Again, you all know, and I re-emphasize, the Cabinet Committee on Security and the government, obviously, was very clear that the Indus Waters Treaty is held in abeyance and will be continued to be held in abeyance until cross-border terrorism by Pakistan is credibly and irrevocably stopped.
Siddhant now joins us, getting us more details and more perspective on this. Siddhant, the External Affairs Minister, once again reiterating India's stance that if we have talks with Pakistan, they are going to be only on terrorism, and until terrorism is uprooted, until Pakistan ends state-sponsored terrorism, until then, there is going to be no condition, no change as far as the IWT is concerned.
Well, that's right, Poonam. And in fact, this is for the first time that EM S. Jaishankar has put forth the things, and in fact he said it very clearly that many issues have been raised. Our relations will be strictly bilateral and no change in condition. The PM said that only talks will be on terrorism. So he again reiterated India's position that if there can be any talk with Pakistan, that should be on the vacation of illegally occupied Kashmir by Pakistan. In fact, he also made it very clear that the government made it clear that IWT, Indus Waters Treaty, is in abeyance and will continue until cross-border terrorism is stopped. This is also in context, Poonam, that now what Pakistan is doing, that Pakistan, while speaking to the other countries, is perhaps raising the issue of Indus Waters Treaty being kept in abeyance by the Indian side. Also, EM said that once they got hit badly on morning of May 10th, all you have seen that pictures of the damage, they will tell what hit they took. So, that's a very strong statement coming from Minister Jaishankar. Perhaps, again, he's reiterating that Indian armed forces got the Pakistanis down on their knees, and because of which only, the calls were initiated by them, perhaps, ceasing the hostilities. And a very important point he made on US-India trade talks, and in fact, he says that these are very complicated negotiations, but any trade deal has to be mutually beneficial. That is our expectation from the trade deal. Perhaps this statement is coming at a time when tomorrow we've been told that Minister Goel is going to go to United States to hold trade talks with the United States. And also, Poonam, we have been hearing a lot of commentary coming from the US government in the last 1 week, perhaps, saying that India has lowered the rates, India has agreed to our terms, etc., etc.
It comes at a time when President Donald Trump has been claiming credit for brokering the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, where he said that it was trade that we used as a tool, as leverage to get both countries to back down at such a time. The kind of comments that have come to the fore from the External Affairs Minister are extremely crucial. But Siddhant, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. As far as the India-Pakistan conflict is concerned, there is a world narrative that's building. Yalda Hakim, a journalist, a TV presenter with Sky News, recently drew attention for confronting Pakistani ministers with tough, uncomfortable questions. She has caught the eye of many across the world for challenging Pakistan's long-standing denials about promoting terrorism. Listen in to this exclusive chat Yalda Hakim had with CNN News 18's Zaka Jacob.
What drew you to the India-Pakistan conflict situation, as it were? I know your family originally is from Afghanistan, so you're from this part of the world, if I can use that phrase. But really, in terms of a news story, what drew you to it? What was so fascinating about it for you to cover as a journalist?
Zaka, thank you so much for having me on your program. As you say, I mean, the region has often interested me. I've covered stories from India, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan for many years, from the very beginning of my journey as a journalist. But I think beyond that, this was and remains an incredibly important story that I feel that frankly Western media continues to miss and doesn't quite understand. They don't understand why Kashmir is such a flashpoint. They don't understand why it is such a hot topic for both India and Pakistan. And beyond that, the fact that you've got two nuclear armed rivals that could be at the brink of war. I think even in this instance, what is now alarming, which is being again missed by Western capitals and their leaders, is the fact that certain red lines have now been crossed and that baseline has now moved, which means the next time there is a flashpoint, we are going to have those lines across yet again, and it could become even more dangerous than, frankly, this time round from 2019 and the various other moments where there has been conflict. But my main frustration in my newsroom, whether it was at the BBC or at Sky News, frankly, is a real lack of fully grasping the importance of this this conflict, not just for the region, but the entire international community.
You know, it's interesting you said that every time there was a terror attack and there was subsequent military retaliation by India, the envelope was pushed a bit more. The chain of escalation went up a bit more. And so was the case now as well. Traditionally, it was always thought that two countries that have nuclear weapons, will not attack each other because that's the ultimate form of deterrence, if you will. But over the last 3 or 4 instances, has India sort of changed the game or moved the envelope in a way that Pakistan cannot use these terror proxies and hope or imagine that there will not be a retaliation or there won't be a consequence, or take refuge behind the nuclear weapons and say, India can't hit us because we have the nuclear weapon?
I think it's a little bit of both. I interviewed Ambassador Amar Sinha very early on after the Pahalgam terrorist attack. And at the time, he said that, we can't continue to be told that there will be this nuclear threat and therefore we can't take action and that we have to tolerate a terrorist attack on Indian soil time and time again. And I think that it's one of those things where what is most concerning is that not only is Pakistan a nuclear armed state, which of course India is too, but it also does have this policy, for those who know Pakistan's history and its relationship with terror organizations, backing them, funding them, supporting them, giving sanctuary to terrorist organizations, whether it was in Bahawalpur or other parts of the country in the tribal belts. They have done that for decades. And I think what's often missed is because Pakistan comes out and denies these, it is often bought by journalists and, frankly, diplomats around the world. The United States spent decades giving billions of dollars to Pakistan in the war against terror, knowing that they were providing sanctuary for these terrorist organizations. And so the finger of blame is often pointed at India for taking action off the back of one of these attacks. And I think that, there is huge difference between India and Pakistan. India is now a great power and Pakistan is a weaker power, and it is still finding itself not cracking down on these terrorist groups. And fundamentally, that is the issue. But these are questions that aren't necessarily asked of Pakistani authorities.
On that note, taking a quick break on this edition of Nation at 5. Back in just a few minutes. Do stay tuned.
They have code-named this operation Operation Sindoor. The Indian Army, through Operation Sindoor, has hit 9 targets.
You try to target our bases, you try to target our capital, or you try to target our cities, we will hit you so hard that you will not be able to fly your machine.
News coming out that nervous Pakistan is seeming to wave the white flag.
This is what Manoj Gupta is bringing for us, this piece of information that Pakistan wants to de-escalate.
As we slip into evening on May 10, Donald Trump, US President, has now announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire.
Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that both India and Pakistan have announced a ceasefire.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To the reports that were doing the rounds earlier about India hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which, remember, houses their nuclear weaponry as well. Now, the global nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, which is popularly known as the IAEA, has said that there has been no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan after the escalated military engagement with India. This is in response to a query on whether any nuclear incident or spill has been brought to the notice of the IAEA's Incident and Emergency Center. India had earlier denied hitting Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which allegedly houses Pakistan's nukes. I go back to Siddhant on that story. Siddhant, all the wagging tongues finally put to rest?
Well, yes, Akanksha. It looks like after the statement from the nuclear watchdog, perhaps I think all this chatter and rumor around India hitting Kirana Hills, perhaps, where Pakistan's nuclear arsenal have been kept. Perhaps the rumor and chatter will be put to an end, Akanksha. In fact, since 10th of May, there was chatter on social media platforms that India has hit Kirana Hills, and there is a radioactive. There could be a possibility of a radioactive leak in that particular area. In fact, an Egyptian plane perhaps has landed near to the Kirana Hills. Perhaps it was assumed that that plane has been sent to see whether there is a leak of a radioactive substance to do the assessment. This plane has come, but now since the nuclear watchdog has said that no leakage has taken place in that particular area, and perhaps has denied any reports of any nuclear site being hit by the Indian Armed Forces. In fact, Akanksha, on the very first day, Air Marshal Bharti also made it very clear that we don't know what is there in Kirana Hills, but we have not hit that site. So India made its position very clear, and now the international watchdog, nuclear watchdog, is also perhaps saying something on the similar lines.
And when the IAEA says that, this means that the matter has now been globally put to rest. Glad, Siddhant, that you mentioned what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti had to say, because let's play out his reaction when he was the first one to dismiss all of those rumors. Let's listen in to what Air Marshal A.K. Bharti said.
Thank you for telling us that Kirana Hill houses some nuclear installation. We did not know about it. Okay. And we've not hit Kirana Hills, whatever is there. Okay. I did not brief in my briefing yesterday.
All right. I go back to Siddhant on that note. Siddhant, of course, it was peppered with a bit of sarcasm when he had responded to that query. But I think what's most important...
Welcome back. There's some breaking news that's now coming in. Politics continues to peak over Operation Sindoor and the individuals that were involved in it. The latest one is Samajwadi Party MP Ram Gopal Yadav, who's now made a casteist remark against Wing Commander Vyomika Singh, who played a key role in the success of Operation Sindoor. She has been the face of the many briefings that the Ministry of Defence and the MEA have been jointly holding to apprise the country of Operation Sindoor. Ram Gopal Yadav has now used a derogatory casteist term against Wing Commander Vyomika Singh. Manmohan Rai, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Manmohan, the list of leaders using derogatory terms, making controversial remarks against India's heroes is only increasing. Akhilesh Yadav's leader now being the latest one.
Yes, you're right. This is the latest case. The senior leader of Samajwadi Party, Ram Gopal Yadav, he is a senior parliamentarian. He's used a derogatory term against Vyomika Singh. She was one of the leading faces to address the press conference after Operation Sindoor concluded, and he went on to say that the three people who were addressing the press conference, Sophia Qureshi, Vyomika Singh and Avdesh Bharti, they are part of PDA. But going along, he used a derogatory term for Vyomika Singh. He said that she is a Jatav, and then used a derogatory term for her, which would not be all right for me to repeat. And so that has created a fresh controversy, and this is the latest controversial statement to come out of UP.
Any reaction so far coming in from anybody within the Samajwadi Party or even the BJP perhaps, Manmohan?
So this has just happened. I'm sure there will be some counter reactions to all this, but this has just happened a few minutes back, and obviously social media is active, and people are accusing Ram Gopal of using such a derogatory term. But the official reaction from BJP, Congress is yet to come.
What was the context in which Ram Gopal Yadav was making this remark? Why is it that he felt the need in the first place to invoke their caste at all?
See, what really happened is that he was addressing a public gathering. He was in Moradabad. So he said that, the Samajwadi Party's latest slogan is PDA, Pichda, Dalit, Alpasankhyak. So Pichda is OBC, Dalit is Dalit, and Alpasankhyak is minorities, Muslims. So he said we are with PDA, and the three big faces of Operation Sindoor, those who addressed press conferences on 2 consecutive days, are also members of PDA. So Sophia Qureshi is a Muslim, Air Marshal Avdesh Bharti is a Yadav from Bihar, and Vyomika Singh is a Jatav. So there is a subcaste among Jatavs. Some people use that word which is derogatory, it is considered illegal, unparliamentary. So he said that she's a Jatav and then used that word. So that has created a fresh row, a fresh controversy, and this is seen as, you know, pulling down our national heroes and labeling them with a caste.
Right. Do stay on with us. BJP's Anila Singh joins us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for speaking with us here, ma'am, on CNN News 18. Your first reaction to what Ram Gopal Yadav has said?
My Ram Ram to all, and this is so weird, bizarre, shocking, obnoxious. How a leader like Ram Gopal Yadav can say such a derogatory thing for a soldier, and his leader, his party's president, Akhilesh Yadav, he keeps on talking about PTA. What type of nonsense is this? She is representing our country. She is a force in herself. She is a Shakti. And this person is humiliating her. This is not for the Vyomika Singh, this is for the nation. He has humiliated whole of the nation. And we want answer for it. Why he has said so.
Ma'am, but if you're talking about action and answers from Akhilesh Yadav, what about the BJP's minister, the MP minister, who also had distasteful remarks to make about and controversial remarks to make about another soldier, Colonel Sophia Qureshi? No action has been taken by the BJP against him?
Yeah, I know one thing, whether it is BJP or Samajwadi Party or any other political party or any person, coming from any organization, institution or the family, if that person is humiliating the armed forces of our country, that is absolutely incorrect. क्योंकि ये राजनीति की बात नहीं है, ये राजनीतिक दलों की बात नहीं है, ये अपमान है तो देश का अपमान है और उसका उत्तर देना होगा, चाहे वो किसी भी दल से आ रहा हो या वो कोई भी कितना भी बड़ा नेता हो.
We do hope that does happen, and the BJP, the Samajwadi Party all walk the talk when they raise questions and rein in their leaders when they make such controversial comments. But Anila Singh, thank you so much for speaking with us. It is a wrap from my side here on Nation at 5. Shivani Gupta joins you next.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. India has made it again clear that talks with Pakistan will only take place on terror and that the Indus Water Treaty will remain in abeyance till Pakistan supports terror against India. This line was reiterated by External Affairs Minister today, nullifying any pressures on India on this front. There was also a message for US President Donald Trump, who suggested that he will, if he hasn't already, keep trade as a bargaining chip over India when it comes to the situation with Pakistan. Dr. S. Jaishankar made it clear that India is only interested in a deal that works for us, for India. This in context of India working out a trade deal with the US. Meanwhile, Pakistan is the butt of jokes further today after Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's sorry attempt at aping Indian Prime Minister by visiting allegedly bases that were struck by India. Images show nothing of significance except for an outdated military that is showing off its tanks in the age of drone and air defense systems. Focus is rightly on Pakistan's nuke weapons now. India is not only putting pressure on financial watchdogs but also on the nuclear watchdog, while emphasizing again that India will not be blackmailed by the Pakistan nuclear bogey. But first, let me give you a sense of the pictures that emerged from the Indian Prime Minister's visit to the Adapur base yesterday and what Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistani Prime Minister, tried to do when he tried to copy the Indian Prime Minister, making a very poor attempt. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived at this airbase that was used during India's strike. Pakistan and Pakistani military had claimed that they have hit this Adapur airbase. Shehbaz Sharif's video doesn't really specify an airfield location. There isn't much to tell you exactly where he is, while the Indian airbase was absolutely clear. One could only see some choppers stationed at a distance behind him. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in fact landed at the Adapur airbase in the C-130 Hercules, making it amply clear that the airstrip was very much intact and usable. But on the other side, there was no visuals of Shehbaz Sharif landing at the airstrip. Instead, he was only shown arriving in a jeep. Not sure what the significance of that could be in the international media. Now, the Indian PM was also pictured with the S-400 and the MiG-29 in close proximity, demonstrating that they were very much intact. Shehbaz Sharif addressed Pakistani soldiers in a plain field with a flex sheet behind him and in a backdrop that had tanks that had absolutely no role to play as far as the current conflict is concerned. It is now clear that Pakistan threatened to use its nukes against India and escalated the situation in front of the world so that they intervened because India was pummeling it so bad. A lot of speculation was created over whether India hit a nuke storage site in Kirana Hills. Now, the Indian Air Force had already rejected it, and now the International Atomic Energy Agency has also clarified that there was no radiation leak from any nuclear facility in Pakistan during the hostilities with India last week. Now, these nuclear theories also gained traction because of what US President Donald Trump had been claiming. He claimed that he averted an India-Pakistan nuclear war. In his very first tweet, he talked about how millions of deaths could have taken place had he not intervened. He then said that he used trade to avert a nuclear war. But this grandstanding was revealed to be just that India did not escalate the situation. Instead, it was Pakistan that got rattled and very clearly threatened to do something which is not against their nuclear policy, by the way. And that is what alarmed the likes of Donald Trump and others. But it brings us to the important point, just as Rajnath Singh, Defence Minister, pointed out earlier today. Global powers have played a dubious history in ignoring Pakistan's nuclear armament. American geopolitics interests meant that during the 1980s, they overlooked Pakistan's nuclear progress as the latter was a key ally in the US-backed Afghan jihad against the Soviets. US law required sanctions if Pakistan develops nukes, but enforcement was delayed until 1990 after the Soviet withdrawal. Beijing allegedly provided Pakistan with those nuclear designs and missile technology. The West avoided confronting China at that time due to economic and diplomatic considerations. Even Europe's weak export controls allowed AQ Khan's network to procure critical components. European governments failed to act decisively despite intelligence reports. All of this because actually these countries saw Pakistan's nukes as a counterweight to India's. We focus on not just Shehbaz Sharif's visit to the army base in Pakistan or wherever he was, plus the question about Pakistan's nukes. All of these narratives are reeling under India's might today.
भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद! पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद!
पाकिस्तान के एटमी हथियारों को IAEA इंटरनेशनल एटॉमिक एनर्जी एजेंसी की निगरानी में लिया जाना चाहिए।
Time to check Pakistan's nukes. I want to go across to our guest joining us on the same, Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, former DGMO, Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, Adjunct Distinguished Fellow, National Security and former member of the NSAB, Brigadier Arun Sehgal, Senior Fellow of the Delhi Policy Group, Sanjay Panda, former Ambassador to Turkey from India, Shalini Chawla, Distinguished Fellow, Center for Air Power Studies, all joining us on the show. Lieutenant General Narasimhan, I want to begin with you. How do you look at Rajnath Singh, none other than him, the Defence Minister, putting the focus on Pakistan's nukes today?
Then thank you for getting me onto your show. 2 points I would like to mention on this. First point is that for the last about 15-17 years, Pakistan has been doing this nuclear blackmail with us. That we've got nuclear weapons and so you can't do anything to us kind of a behavior. I think that was called out during Sindoor. And not only of Sindoor, 2016, 2019 and 2025, all three times it has been proved that there is a window before the nuclear threshold that can be utilized. That is point number one. Point number two, even in this of Sindoor, there has been, the moment we went near their nuclear establishment, they actually raised the white flag.
Yes.
So the problem that comes up is that they are actually worried about their nuclear weapons and their usage. And they have a they have a first use policy. They don't have no first use policy. They have the other way around. And so I think putting all this together, there was always a worry that these nuclear weapons can fall into the wrong hands in Pakistan. Though of course they'll be protected well, we have no doubts about that, but there is always a possibility of that getting into the hands of the undesirable elements is something that was actually talked about. The thing is, that is one of the reasons I think the defense minister has gone on record to say that the nuclear weapons of Pakistan should be get under the supervision of the IAEA. I think this is the way I think you need to see this.
No, but do you think that this is a more aggressive stance than what has been taken by India officially in the past, that there is clearly a change of tact as far as India is going about it?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. In fact, we have been very clear in saying this. In fact, Prime Minister in his address to the nation also mentioned the days of the nuclear blackmail are over. And I think this is a very, very positive and a very, very powerful stance that we are actually pushing for. And if these weapons come under the supervision of the IAEA, that will be exactly good for not only for us, not only for Pakistan and for the entire world.
Yes. Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think what did transpire was that India was pummeling, Pakistan's air bases, and some of them were very close to their nuclear storage sites or whatever you want to call them. And they created an alarm because their nuclear policy is very clear. One is to deter India from ever fighting a war with them. Second is to not allow India to win in conventional war if it ever breaks out. So I think my understanding is that they're the ones who created this nuclear frenzy, speaking to the Americans and others, forcing them to intervene, and that is why those statements from Donald Trump also came out. Do you think that actually doing that from Pakistan should tell the global powers, including America, that they're actually dealing with a very unstable, rogue country that will not think twice just to not have a conventional war loss? They may tomorrow use nukes or threaten to use nukes. They do this all the time. Don't you think Americans and others should wake up to how rogue Pakistan is?
No, one has to look at Pakistan and what it has been doing till now. They have been using the lowest end of the spectrum, that is using terrorists as strategic weapons, while on the other hand, always using the nuclear bogey. This is the first time that the present government under the Prime Minister called the bluff. And that is why when Pahalgaon happened, we have gone to the terrorist camps, to the terrorist infrastructure and effectively destroyed it. And the escalation has also been raised to a level where their airfields were attacked, including the one at Sargodha. This was a clear message to Pakistan that their nuclear bluff will not work. And the adequate amount of measured surgical punishment was given to Pakistan. So one thing is very clear with the way the escalation took place and how we controlled it, that nowhere were we looking at targeting anything to do with nuclear. That should be very clear. Sargodha was one of the airfields India has addressed. It is not because it is close to a nuclear facility. And that was very clear from the DGAO's briefing which happened a few days back.
But my question is, what about the message that countries like US should take? I mean, if Donald Trump is saying that actually there was alarming intel and he's the one who has averted a nuclear war, shouldn't they also come to the realization of the country they're dealing with? This episode should tell them how unstable Pakistan is.
Definitely, that irresponsibility of a nation which has a nuclear bombs with it is alarming for the whole world. And the world has to pay attention to it and try to take all measures to ensure that rogue nations do not have nuclear weapons or they are controlled by somebody else.
Mr. Panda, do you think the international community will take notice of it, or there are just too many geopolitical concerns which have allowed countries like Pakistan to become nuclear armed in the first place that will always, play these dirty tricks and dirty politics?
Shivani, one thing is very clear. The way Pakistan became a nuclear power, the AQ Khan, the entire, the manner in which the things, it was procured and the way Pakistan became nuclear. So IAEA should have been absolutely taken Pakistan, and it should have been on IAEA's radar right from the word go. Pakistan has been using this, nuclear bluff for quite some time. And I can assure you there are many takers, whatever we may say in international community. What I feel extremely irritated about when US and other powers, when they talk about a nuclear India and nuclear Pakistan, how can you equate the two countries? One is a responsible nuclear power, the other is you do not know, who has the controls there. But having said that, nuclear war cannot be won, and they are aware of it. If Pakistan chooses to, there was a statement even before this conflict started. They said that we will do anything that it takes, including using conventional and nuclear options. Now, these are very irresponsible statements. So, which is what the international community should be worried about. And the very fact, even President Trump, when he uses this term, nuclear, he averted a nuclear war. I mean, that puts Pakistan and India in the same footing, which is what is really of concern.
Yes.
And which is what we should address.
No, which has certainly rankled a few people in India. I'm not sure if Brigadier Arun Sehgal is with me. Can I go across to him? Sir, if you can hear me, I want to get your sense on...
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, yes.
Thank you so much. I want to get your sense on the Defence Minister's statements today, putting the focus on Pakistan's nuke and how unreliable the country is, and how best forward India can put pressure on the international nuclear watchdog in this regard.
Madam, there are 2-3 issues involved. Number one, it's a good statement. It makes a good copy, but I don't think IAEA has any authority or any capacity to rein in Pakistan. Pakistan can only be reined in by a collective will of the people around the world, the powers that support him, and the powers that continue to build up his capacity. Pakistan is a rogue nuclear power which needs to be contained, but I do not think the Americans, the Chinese or the British have any interest in containing them. It's part of a larger geopolitical game in which Pakistan is being leveraged for different reasons, which I may not like to spell out openly in this thing. But the fact of the matter is that it's a rogue nation. The worst part we must remember is that Pakistani nuclear weapons are not under the control of the political establishment. The employment committee is only notionally headed by the Prime Minister, but actual control is of the National Command Authority, lies with the Army Chief and his minions who control the SPD, Strategic Plans Division of the Pakistan. So, while it's a good thing, it makes a good political point, but I do not think it has much substance.
Okay, I'll come back to you, sir. Just give me a moment. I have some breaking updates also coming in. And this is with regards to India's response to Pakistani allies as well. We're getting news that the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security has taken away or revoked the security clearance to Celebi Airport Services India Private Limited with immediate effect in the interest of national security. There are a total of 9 stations in India consisting of Mumbai, Delhi and others where this company was functioning, and it was granted to Celebi Ground Handling India Private Limited. That has been revoked. Remember, this is in context of this being a Turkish company and more such action is now being taken. Yesterday we had certain Indian universities that took action of cancelling their MOUs as far as Turkish universities are concerned, and now this Turkish firm's license to operate in very sensitive areas at airports in the country has also been revoked. In fact, I want to go across to Mr. Panda, who continues to be with us. Sir, how do you look at this? Certainly a lot of heat on Turkey.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Turkey, the way it has approached this issue, I mean, I've been saying this, it's a major strategic miscalculation for Turkey. There's so much at stake, but somehow President Erdogan has this bee in his bonnet that he needs to become the head of the Islamic world by reviving the Caliphate glory. And for that, he could go any length. What he doesn't realize that $10 billion trade is at stake, the investment is at stake, and there are many Turkish companies who are aspiring to, get involved in the infrastructure in India. Now, I won't be surprised if the MOU which is signed between it's a major rail project between Rail Vikas Nigam Limited and a Turkish company. I mean, that also could be reviewed. But having said that, so far as jalebi is concerned, I mean, they have been in India for several years now, and they've been doing a great job. And interestingly, I mean, while I was in Ankara, I have had occasion to interact with jalebi quite extensively. In fact, they had difficulty with the political leadership in Turkey. And they were always apprehensive of this happening. And this has indeed happened now. So I'm not surprised. And I think even the Turkish companies could be debarred from participating in Indian projects for on security grounds. So it's very important to do this messaging so far as Turkey is concerned.
Yeah.
But we have to be very careful in seeing that certain moves. It's not that, there's a big campaign which is going on ban Turkey. That doesn't help really, because we do have diplomatic relations. There is an embassy,
Yes.
we have to get into all that. So it's not that the government is going to do anything. I mean, it's most important to, have this messaging. It cannot be business as usual.
Cannot be business as usual. Certainly a message can be put, some pressure points can be pressed. My colleague Anvit is also joining us. Just give me a minute, my guest, so that I can go across to my colleague Anvit, who's also bringing us more. Anvit, what more are you learning on this?
So this was an order dated 15th of May and it has been issued with immediate effect, and the order reads that security clearance to Celebi hereby stands revoked with immediate effect in the interest of national security. Now this had been under speculation for past since some time, and because it happens to be a Turkish company, and also because of the backlash that there has been, be it on social media or in person. And this all started after the online anger began, after Turkey, publicly it had criticized India's military strikes on terror camps in Pakistan and even in the POK region. And particularly it was on May 7th, when also the Turkish foreign minister, he also had issued a top statement warning that India's actions could lead to a wider war. And following that, there has been online backlash as well. Many of the tourists have also cancelled their plans of traveling to Turkey. So, and some flights also, we had also checked with some certain airlines. They had also said that last moment cancellations have been reported in huge number. Other than that, there also reports that the controversy it further escalated because the Indian authorities had confirmed that drones shot down near the border were also found to be of Turkish origin. So that is another controversy that had taken place, following which a number of people have cancelled their tours to Turkey, and not just that, but many flyers have also reported that last moment cancellation with the airlines as well.
Yes, Tanvir, thanks a lot for joining us. Shalin Chavram, coming to you, it's not so much the fact that you dealt arms to Pakistan. A lot of countries sell arms to other countries. It was more about the stand that Turkey has taken. In fact, earlier today, Azerbaijan, the other country that came out in full support of Pakistan, has once again reiterated that Azerbaijan and Pakistan are absolutely together, they are brothers, and so on and so forth. Do you think India should use its increased global position and weightage to send a message, not just to those who deal with Pakistan, they may have their own trade interests, but those who take a false equivalent position between India and Pakistan, or don't even condemn the terror that emanates from Pakistan?
Yes, you are right. Because it was not, we have seen Turkey and Pakistan defense cooperation for very long, and last 4 years the cooperation had really gone up from, initial beginning we saw about Turkey refurbishing the F-16s, but then we saw Pakistan acquiring the equipment, and then Pakistan also talking about buying the Turkish fifth generation aircraft Khan. But what is obviously in this whole situation, what makes it the point for us, what we have taken position here, is not about the arms, as you said, but Turkey's position, where this was one of, I think, the two countries who actually condemned India's action.
Yes.
The word used was condemned. Even China did not use the word condemned, it used the word regret in its statement. So if you have this kind of blatant support, if you support Pakistan, obviously it's a full-fledged support to terrorism that you are extending. And then we have seen this, the whole mindset emerging under the new president, how he has been talking about a new alliance between Turkey, Malaysia and Pakistan. So this was something which was not surprising, but yes, we saw this coming, this kind of a posture in the crisis. And what we can do about it, yes, we should be using our position, whatever we can do within the country in terms of at least not having any, support to Turkey in any form in trade and the economic activities there. Certainly that expression of this anger and resentment, I think, is definitely going to be the right thing to do for India's posture.
And Shalini, what do you think has been the impact of India's superior air power that was demonstrated during Op Sindoor, not just to Pakistan but even other global powers? It seems very clear that India has not only made a strategic intent clear, but it has also shown it has the military prowess to back it, to call off that Pakistani nuclear buff. They've certainly sent a message that if we want to tomorrow, we can incapacitate your nuclear capabilities.
I think the operation, the way it was carried on, the way the terrorist hideouts was, not the hideouts, the, network was struck, I think it required extreme precision and also intel, which was exercised, and it's quite admirable. And it has been applauded, though Pakistan has been on the narrative that they won the war, which was also very expected that they're going to do that. As far as our calling Pakistan's nuclear bluff, I'm glad you brought this point again to me. I think in this situation where we see the defense minister's statement, so 3 points are very important here. One is that how Pakistan acquired the nuclear weapons, that was through China and the network which was talked about. Second and very important part about the new Pakistan is how it projects its nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And you also talked about it, that its nuclear weapons are to counter a conventional war and not like India, which wants to exercise it to counter a nuclear attack.
Yes.
So it has an unwritten doctrine, it has a first use doctrine, and it also has often projected a very low nuclear threshold, that anything goes wrong, we're going to use it. And lastly, obviously, for decades we have seen that it has used it to conduct terrorism. From 1987 we have seen when they announced they got the nuclear weapons, and then we have seen during Operation Brass Tack at that time, then Operation Parakram, each time the threat has been used, but that doesn't work anymore. And why the country should not have it, I think for us the stance had to be, one is that how the country projects that it wants to use the nuclear weapon, where it keeps it completely ambiguous. Second part is that, is the country actually capable of handling it? The country which is going through so much of turmoil within, even in 2024,